Good evening, everyone. Good evening, guests and community members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You're able to hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So good evening. It is now 7:38 p.m. on Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. The Montgomery Township Board of Education public meeting session will resume. And we'll call this meeting to order. So on behalf of all our board members, we welcome you to our meeting this evening. Board Secretary Nancy, would you please commence with the public meeting session roll call at this time?
Ms. Birch?
Present.
Mr. Carlson? Here. Ms. Franco-Herman?
Present.
Mrs. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Herring?
Present.
Mr. Speck?
Present.
Ms. Dina?
Present.
Mr. Todd? Present. Dr. Spence Wallace?
Present. If everyone would please rise for the flag salute.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. So it is at this time that Board Secretary Venanzi will share an announcement about the November 8th, 2022 election public question results.
Okay, November 8th election had a spending proposal included as a separate question. We're only dealing with this issue tonight as far as the announcements of the election results with respect to the candidates that were selected to the board. That will happen at our reorganization meeting on January 3rd, where those newly elected board members will be sworn into office. The question that was before the public for the vote was for a proposal for additional funds for full-day kindergarten. First part of the question was to be raised an additional $1,620,152 for general funds in the 22-23 school year, provide for a full-day kindergarten program. These taxes will be used exclusively for additional costs required to provide for a full-day kindergarten program, including additional costs for salaries, benefits, and/or other compensation or expenses required for teachers, specials, basic skills, special ed, counselors, paraprofessionals, lunchroom aides, curriculum, technology, facility operating costs, utilities, and related costs. Approval of these taxes will result in a permanent increase in the district tax levy. And Part B, there shall be raised an additional $669,763 for general funds in the 22-23 school year for facility improvements at the Early Childhood Center, formerly known as the Kid Connection Building. These taxes will be used exclusively for facility improvements required for use of the building for the full-day pre-kindergarten program. Approval of these taxes will not result in a permanent increase in the district's tax levy. So the election results were 3,892 voting yes, 3,849 voting no. So the proposal did pass. Included on our agenda this evening is an adjustment to the budget that reflects the increase in the local tax levy, as well as the additional expenses that were approved by the public.
Thank you, Board Secretary Venanzi. So next, we will hear our student representative report presented by Montgomery High School student Ryan Walls, and that will be followed by the superintendent's report and the related presentations.
Can everyone hear me?
Hi everyone. It's very busy at Montgomery right now. So I know the students are working really hard. Winter sports are starting up, winter concerts are coming up, and there's lots of end of semester assessments. We recently had an event where students could pie teachers, which was definitely fun and a lot of stress relief, probably more so for the students than the teachers. And Montgomery is also having a drive to provide essential items to charity, which runs up till January. Definitely a time of productivity, but with that being said, everyone is really excited for winter break.
Good evening, everyone. As winter and its unpredictable weather are quickly upon us, I want to remind everyone to check their emails and the website for any changes to the school day calendar schedule for the days due to inclement weather. So winter break begins next Friday, December 23rd, with all schools on an early dismissal schedule. If we do not use an emergency closure day between now and next Friday, we will return, school will reopen Tuesday, January 3rd. In the event that we do use one, which I don't think we will, because Thursday looks getting rain now, we would return Monday, January 2nd. So just keep an eye out. Since the last Board of Education meeting, as Mr. Venanzi just stated, the results of the ballot question regarding full-day kindergarten have been certified. Beginning next September, the district will be providing full-day kindergarten to our students. Thank you for your support. We will provide updates with the community as we begin the implementation phase of this initiative. Registration for kindergarten will begin in late January. Also, at the January 3rd Board of Education meeting, we will welcome our 3 newly elected board members. At Orchard Hill, our second graders have been engaged in their poetry writing unit, which focuses on helping students to see the world in fresh and unique ways. Students are enjoying practicing being real poets through the use of repetition, precise word choice, and comparisons. Earlier this month at Orchard Hill, the community raised funds for a great cause, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, CHOP. They celebrated by having the CHOP Pajama Day on December 2nd, and they surpassed their goal of $5,000. So congratulations to them. The SEL team continues to focus on expanding the staff and student resources connected to regulation, self-regulation. Something new at Orchard Hill Hallways is the I Spy bulletin board, full of exciting and eye-catching items that the students can visit to help reset and regulate their moods. UMS students have been learning about the sacrifices made by U.S. veterans who serve and have served our country. Tomorrow, UMS is hosting the Wreaths Across America convoy, which includes several veteran groups and Gold Star families. The students will lead a heartfelt and entertaining ceremony for the group as they travel from Maine to Virginia. The UMS Instructional Strategies team led a PD session for our staff on universal design for learning. It was well received and is effective in continuing to design instruction for all learners. The Montgomery High School Wind Ensemble is working with TCNJ faculty to explore and perform Of Our New Day Begun, a piece of music written to honor those who lost their lives in the 2015 shooting at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in South Carolina. Come see them perform at Montgomery High School on January 18th at 7 p.m. I want to wish you all a safe and happy holiday season and winter break. Tonight, we have the Montgomery High School leadership team here to provide us with their update. I would like to introduce Montgomery High School Principal, Mrs. Heather Pino-Beatty.
I brought a couple of friends with me. Good evening, Superintendent McLaughlin, Board President Spence Wallace, members of the Board of Education, students, and my Montgomery High School family. Superintendent McLaughlin and Board President Spence Wallace, thank you once again for inviting our SLT to speak at this meeting and for the entire board's unwavering support this last year. And what an amazing year it has been. At the December board meeting 1 year ago, I stood with my family in front of all of you as I was appointed principal of Montgomery High School. 1 year ago. Reflected in my evaluation. Tonight, I'm here once again in celebration. I'll be joined tonight by MTEA Vice President Jen Jones and Vice Principal Scott Pachuta, and together we will highlight a few of the amazing achievements of our staff and students. I'd like to start by sharing a reflection with all of you. This past Friday, I was approached by two of our Montgomery High School journalism students. They asked for some time to sit down and talk and to conduct an interview. Now, I'm certain that all of you have met some of our students. So you know two truths existed here. One, there was no saying no to them. They are amazingly persuasive. Two, there was going to be a lot of thinking involved, because let's face it, they're brilliant. Our students asked questions and probed deeply. They inquired about the highs and lows of my career, and they pushed me to explore my thoughts for the future of our school and our greater world. They asked a lot of questions. But there was one that has lingered with me and has left me in a state of reflection since Friday. How and when do you decide it is time to stand up and advocate? I fumbled with my answer, if I'm being honest with all of you. I talked about looking at what is right for students as the guiding light in decision making. I quoted some Ruth Bader Ginsburg, my favorite. Fight for the things that you care about, but do so in a way that will lead others to join you. I reflected on the need to stand for what is right, even if it's not popular, and even if you are standing alone. And then I reminded them that sometimes no response is the actual response. However, I went home on Friday with a pit in my stomach, a feeling that for me is synonymous with making a bad decision or maybe not following the right direction. And then I spent a lot of time thinking and asking myself some hard questions. Our students are indeed brilliant, and they are self-aware. They are advocates and change agents. They stay in touch with current events in our community and our world. They watch all of us, and they expect greatness from us all. While I've advocated and worked towards our collective sense of belonging here at Montgomery High School, I have failed to assist in shifting the narrative of hate that has plagued our world for the better part of this year. My silence is born from the fear of being a target of hate, and that stands in direct contrast to everything that each and every one of us here tonight wants to teach our students. In response to when and how I advocate, my message in that interview should have included, if you are afraid, it is okay. However, you must move forward, even though you may do so fearfully. I need our students and our school community to know that in every interaction, bigotry and hate, even when cloaked in the concept of kindness, are still bigotry and hate. We all need to do better. I need to do better. Students, you need to do better. Our world needs to do better. I'm an extremely protective parent to the school community that I have been entrusted with. I refuse to not be a beacon of hope. Traditionally, as the new year approaches, many of us take time to reflect, set goals, and seek opportunities to positively impact those within our reach. Tonight, I am respectfully asking that we all shift our focus to one of positivity. Our educational professionals, along with their counterparts around the world, are navigating problems associated with learning loss that are a direct byproduct of the universal pandemic mitigation strategies, a youth mental health crisis that is of epic proportions, and the climate of violence that has plagued our nation and has become ever-present in world events, the news, and social media. If we want to help our children succeed, we must shift our focus to one that is centered on hope, foundational relationships, data-driven decision-making, and unity. I am so proud of our school community. I continue to be proud every single day. And now I'm going to share a little bit of that pride with you as I call up MTEA Vice President Jen Jones. So we're going to be doing our SLT share out for this month. We focused on a couple of overarching things. One of them is the concept of belonging here at Montgomery High School. Another is our greater family, our decision-making processes, and all that gets accomplished within the course of time in a high school. It is immense. So a little bit about Montgomery High School. We are considered to be a premier learning institution. We are a Blue Ribbon School of Excellence. We have a very diverse background made up of varied ethnic and cultural groups. We do have, as we know, an extremely challenging scholastic environment. We can consistently produce some of the highest achieving learners in the state of New Jersey and our nation. Our graduating class percentages going off to four-year colleges and post-secondary institutions is significant. We offer a wide breadth of advanced placement courses, honors courses, and accelerated courses, and we also offer a vast array of challenging academic electives. We have a broad program of over 40 recognized co-curricular offerings. We have award-winning co-curricular performing arts programs, highly acclaimed bands, orchestras, and choral groups. We have academic clubs that include robotics, mock trial, science olympiad, which, by the way, last year our science olympiad was #1 in the nation. We have service organizations that are recognized for their community contributions. We also have 33 varsity sports teams and approximately 975 student athletes, with the student first.
So moving into why our SLT committee is here tonight, we talk about collaboration. So why collaboration? And oftentimes I think, well, why not? So if you look at the reasons why it's important that we participate and we have collaboration within our building and within the district, first of all, it creates positive climate. The people that you see behind me tonight, they're all generally all are from the high school. They're here to support and listen to what our school leadership team is doing within our building. Creating a positive environment, creating a positive climate, getting the buy-in on decision making. It builds trust on all levels. It directs more resources towards improving what needs to be improved throughout the school academics. It creates problem-solving infrastructure so that all people, all members are involved. It increases better communication. It also helps with information sharing, so all members of the building, all members of our community will get the same information. They have participation in every corner of our building is involved in our school leadership team, as you'll see later on in our presentation. It gives support for joint decisions. We're not making decisions in isolation. We're not working from the top down. We're working together. The union, our MTEA, is a network and it's a resource to make our building processes work better. The principal is a resource. It creates psychological safety for all of us involved, and it allows for systems and processes instead of silos to occur.
So a question that often gets asked, specifically of administrators, is do you really want to give up control and enter into collaboration? And the answer is, I have two questions in response. What are you really trying to control, and how do you define leadership? So I'm a big follower of Brené Brown. So this is one of my favorite quotes on leadership. I define a leader as anyone who takes the responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes and who has the courage to develop that potential. I should never be the smartest or only person in the room when making a decision. I am surrounded by people that have unbelievable potential. They are unbelievably bright and they are unbelievably dedicated to our students. So I'm not giving up control. We're driving this together.
So taking a look at what collaborative structures we have in place at MHS, we have 4 areas in which collaboration is occurring and in which many members of the school building, administration, APSMT, as well as MTEA are involved. We have our school leadership team. Our school leadership team focuses on instructional practices. We have our solutions team, and the solutions team, which is another group of committee members, including staff and administration, but yet another group involved in these processes. They focus on building issues and building operations. We also have the Empathy, Equity, and Inclusion, commonly known as EEI, and they focus on diversity, equity, also and inclusion. And then the 4th area that we have collaborative structures in place is our trauma-informed leadership team, and they focus on the neurodevelopment processes and the relational impacts that they have.
So it's important to note here that we have a continuum of decision-making that we exist within. So if you look at it all the way to the left-hand side, you have completely administrator-centered decisions. So that's something that I would call an outdated and traditional model of academic decision-making. So it's, the principal, the superintendent, the supervisor, whoever it may be, they're going to make a decision, they're going to make it on their own, it's going to impact you, and we're going to tell you what we're doing to you. There's no buy-in, there's no understanding, it lacks meaning. So what happens, and what I often felt as a teacher, is it was just another shrink-wrapped initiative that was passed down to me that I was expected to carry out with little to understanding. On the other side, we have staff-centered decisions. So they completely, the staff, not me, even though I am part of the staff, let's be clear, would make a decision without any administrative guidelines. So they're going to go with something on their own. We tend to exist in 2 and 3. So 3 places equal weight on a decision, and we're going to talk about that a little bit as we move forward, especially with this year's school leadership team project. And then a 2 is an administrative decision, but staff are consulted in making that decision. So we're looking to make sure that we're listening to all the different voices in the room, considering things that maybe we wouldn't consider, expanding a bit beyond our own breadth of knowledge as we enter into a decision.
So just taking a look at this slide, if you want to look at the faces, unfortunately one is hidden behind, but looking at that school leadership team, they really do represent every nook and cranny. And if you know the high school well, it's very large. We have access now to being able to access information, get data, survey, talk to each other, and bring out the information and bring it back to the committee in helping to make the decisions. And with that, I can see, and you can tell that the feeling is so much better and well received when information comes back, because everyone has had a chance to have some form of opinion, some input into that process. We have a diversified group of people from every different discipline within the building.
Before Jen goes on, the one thing that I do want to let you know is there's an equal weight at the table when we come together. So there's a meeting, Jen and I co-chair the meeting. We have equal weight in that process. We have equal weight in deciding who's on the team. We enter into a 3-year rotation so that way people move in and move off, and we make sure that we continue to keep things fresh, and we're considering every vantage point that we can. But there's no one person who carries the weight of that team.
And that's not just being spoken about. That's the way it feels when you're sitting at that meeting. So I'm not going to read through all of the things that we have up on this list. If you look at the left-hand side, it is overwhelming.
On purpose.
And the school leadership team during those years felt very overwhelmed with the enormous task that we had on how are we going to get through the pandemic. So all of those decisions that you see up there bulleted, all of those accomplishments from 20 to 21, they were countless hours of teachers putting in the time beyond the hours that we were teaching to meet and come up with the best way that we could meet our students' needs, and also making sure that our teachers were able to and fit to be able to do what was being asked for, and had input. Again, I can't stress enough having input into the decision making, how important that is in its success.
And just to add a small part, students are part of this. So when we choose when we go and receive information from students. So I do have a principals advisory that meets monthly. We talk about a wide variety of things. That is a collaborative structure in and of itself. But even as we're going through the process of dealing with, in this case, things that impact teaching and learning, we are constantly receiving information from our students, because really they are the critical piece in doing what we do.
As you can see, we go back and forth, so we really do work as a team. We've done this with other school districts. We've talked about, we really lead many school districts in the state of New Jersey on how we're being so successful at doing this. But I'm just going to highlight some of the things, I can't say like since COVID, because it's really COVID, I guess, is still around, but some of the things that, more recently we've worked on through our collaborative learning teams, our CLTs, developing common assessments within our CLTs, developing curricula. I think empathy, because it was so important, it caused us to create an EEI committee. If you go down to the 21-22 school year, we had a school year-long project, and we worked on an analysis of having prerequisites and the impacts that it would have, and refining what it would be to have a drop-add period and when that should be. And that took kind of the better part of the year. Just to kind of add to what School Leadership Team 2 is also doing is that we are working inter-building, so that we have different buildings looking at what other SLTs are doing, so that it has a much better flow throughout the different buildings as well. So we all are trying to help each other, and so that we're all functioning and seeing what each other is doing. We had one of those meetings today where a school came up and kind of just listened to what we were doing and how do relationships work at different levels.
So this is something that we are currently working on, our 22-23 school leadership team project, which was spoken about in ACI this past week. I'm sure that Board President Spence Wallace will be highlighting it in her report as well. So what we're looking at is, over the course of the last 10 years, the state of New Jersey has pushed down more and more graduation requirements with, that are attached to credit, that are attached to seat time, that are attached to standards. And we've been faced with a situation where we've really locked up our master schedule. So it is difficult for students to follow their passion, take courses that they really want to take, explore electives that are a little bit more diverse. So we started to think about, how can we do this better? So in looking at a lot of the districts around us across the state of New Jersey, what we recognized is we could do something better. So we are going to be next year offering online financial literacy for all of our students through a comprehensive program called the Budget Challenge. It's something that I wish that I had when I was younger. It may be something that I still need. So every student gets a salary, gets bills to pay, a savings that they have to maintain, and they have to navigate a semi-real world scenario through the course of a 10-week online course. So they will have touch points within the school that they will exist in. It will fulfill the graduation requirement. Nowhere in the graduation requirement did it ever stipulate to us that it had to be an actual class, but with little to no guidance from the state, which seldom happens, we found ourselves where other schools found themselves as well and created a class. So we did what everybody else did, and now we are recognizing we can do this a little bit better. So a lot of what we are working on now with our SLT, including the work that we worked on today, is looking at the implementation plan for this new line experience, and that is a level 3 decision. So that is all of us coming together from different backgrounds. It's every different school group represented. It's taking into consideration things for our English language learners. It's taking into consideration those of our students that need more academic support, and looking at how are we going to roll this out next year in a manner that creates success for all of our students. That is at the core of every project we do. Are we doing what's best for students? How do we make them more successful?
So just kind of, again, just like we have our SLT team, these are the staff members within our high school honor solutions team. And what we have decided, Ms. Pito and I have decided to have a 3-year rotation so that teachers will serve. They will commit to 3 years. And once their rotation is up, we will rotate out and a new person comes in from that department. So that we, for many reasons, it's a lot of hours. It's a lot of hours that you put in. And then beyond the meetings, it's hours that you have to go back and talk to your department. And it's a lot of work, as well as bringing in new people, bringing in new faces, bringing in new fresh ideas, and really getting more people involved so that they understand collaboration. Because collaboration as a word doesn't mean anything until you dig in and you actually participate in collaboration and you see it firsthand. So that is our solutions team.
I'm going to share this story a little at my detriment and maybe Jen's embarrassment. Solutions is where I got into collaboration. I transitioned from being a school counselor to a vice principal. I was thrust into solutions in a different role. I had sat on as a member. Now I was sitting on as somebody on the administrative end, and I was missing the point. And one day, Jen stayed back, and she looked at me and said, we need to have a conversation. And, I get a little nervous because that sense of psychological safety wasn't there yet for me. And Jen looked at me and said, you don't need to have all the answers. We are coming together to find them. Stop. And it was just an eye-opening moment for me as an administrator. It wasn't all on my shoulders. We were a team. And I will tell you now that often when things go wrong, Jen and the people that are behind us are the people I run to when I look for help. It's the psychological safety that exists from what I will now call our family, that we look to each other to find the solutions to our problems.
Just to speak to a little bit the solutions team, it can be anything from things that teachers, staff are struggling with to things that teachers know that kids are struggling with. And we just bring it to the table, we create a spreadsheet, we talk about it, we try to even have like suggested solutions before we meet to be time efficient as best as we can, but it really just deals with building issues.
So some of our accomplishments, and these next ones we're going to go through rather quickly, looking at calibration of student discipline, student attendance issues, back when we were doing a lot of contact tracing, looking at our methodology for that, for QR codes, looking at student equity and access for our ELL students, textbook material collection, after-school help parameters, professional development day structures. So these are the actual, there are problems that come into play that inhibit your ability to exist as a building. This is where we handle those.
Again, another one of our committees, and again, some more fresh faces, some repeat faces, but generally fresh faces from other committees that we have.
So again, EEI looks at empathy, equity, inclusion, and most importantly, belonging, which we're going to touch on as we get to what I would call the more fun part of our presentation. Some of our EEI initiatives up here, looking at community outreach and education has been a big one, sense of belonging, peer leader work, coffee and conversations amongst our staff, where we're working on our own cultural competency and growth, meetings with different student groups, working with students to impact curriculum. All of these things come out of that collaborative structure. And then this one I'll take as the last one, our trauma-informed leadership team. This was, when it comes to trauma-informed care, we were ahead of the curve nationally and in the state of New Jersey. Much due to, we found that we had kids that we just weren't reaching through traditional means, and we had gone to Mary and said, we got to find a way to do this better, and Mary has an undying belief in all of us and said, go out and find it. So we did, and what we were able to bring back set us up so well for the pandemic that our trauma-informed leadership team really stopped existing as a team because it became our everyday. So now we're in the process of rebuilding that team and looking at some of the work we do. We now have regulation kits in all of our classrooms. Our staff has all been trained. We worked on training staff across the district. We've been to county superintendent meetings. We've been all over the place working with people on trauma-informed care. And really the cornerstone of our belief is there are no bad kids. It's just not what we believe here. So we have kids that have lagging skills. There is no such thing as bad kid.
Sure. And just kind of to sum it up, coming together, it's a beginning. Staying together is progress, and when you work together, you create success.
So now I'm going to ask Scott Pachuta to come up, one of our vice principals, and we've really focused on our sense of belonging post-pandemic. I'm going to let him talk about that for a moment, and then you're going to be treated to what we at Montgomery High School know as a Pachuta production.
My name is Scott Pachuta. I'm one of the vice principals at Montgomery High School. I've been honored to have worked here since 2014. It's been a long time, and it's been incredible. So I was asked a little less than a month ago, with the emphasis on a little less than a month,
Listen, I have high expectations,
to put a
guys.
video together that showcased family and what that family meant to us at Montgomery High School. And while I had a blast going through pictures, going through the Instagram, collecting pictures from just my own phone, and with the help of a senior, Logan Dimitri, who will be a award-winning videographer later in life. He was very helpful in capturing some of the raw footage during the day-to-day. And of course, our student testimonies. It was fun, but it did not capture what truly we experience on a day-to-day behind closed doors. It's impossible to capture that. The behind-the-scenes work is really where the family exists. The amount of conversations we have as a staff with each other about our students, guidance, the nurse, coaches, it is a constant conversation, an emotional conversation at times. We wake up really early in the morning, and we work really long hours for our students. A lot of times we're leaving the building still talking about the students. Meetings before the meeting, meetings after the meeting. Because statistically, the students are in our building in our classrooms longer than they are at home throughout the course of a school year. So we have no choice but to be family. And with that comes all the highs and the lows, but it is an absolute pleasure and it's an honor, and it's the reason why I get out of bed at that alarm clock going off so early in the morning. So without further ado, I do want to highlight that one of our continual goals here is in the social and emotional learning for our students. That is at the forefront. We have extremely brilliant, smart students, talented students, but if anything, if the pandemic showed us anything, it is that we missed each other, and we missed the bond and the community that we had in the school across the nation. But so this gives a little bit of a highlight, but again, not the true details of our hardworking staff that we have here that creates this Montgomery family. So thank you.
Montgomery High School, this is us. We are home to over 1,600 unique, inspiring, and incredible students, all of whom fill these halls with an energy that is palpable. It goes without saying that the last 2.5 years were anything but easy. The COVID-19 pandemic took its toll on so many of us and in so many ways. We lost a bit of ourselves, and we lost a bit of our Cougar community. With the help of the administration, teachers, coaches, and counselors, we knew it was our responsibility to bring back what we lost. Montgomery is way more than just a high school. We are a community. We are a community of teachers, artists, musicians, athletes, friends, colleagues, all forming this continuous bond of family. In fact, MHS is merely an extension of our own families. It isn't uncommon to see teachers, administrators, or coaches bring their own families to events to share in that sense of belonging and community that is so deeply rooted in this special place. Took the opportunity to check in with a few of our students to ask them about their experience here at MHS. Here's what they had to say.
People who made me feel the most supported in school are definitely all the teachers I've had these past 4 years, because not only do they care for me as a student, but they always check in on me as a genuine person, always making sure I'm okay, that everything's going well for them.
My number one supporters at the school are my friends. I always go to them whenever I need help or advice. And because they're like similar age to me and we have common interests and all that, we're able to relate to each other. But also when that's not an option, I also sometimes go to my teachers or my counselor. And they're always there to help you. I know that I've gone to my counselor on many occasions, not many, like a couple of times, and he has always helped me, and I have always felt better after knowing and seeing him.
To answer that, there are just so many support systems in place at Montgomery. Be it your counselor, your teachers, your friend group. My best advice if you're struggling with something, be it academic or personal, is to talk about it with your counselor or teachers. Like, they want to help you. Like, they want to see you succeed. I promise you, your teachers don't want you to fail. People don't want to see you struggling. But in order to do that, you have to be ready to voice your needs or raise concerns. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to ask for extensions. Don't be afraid to ask for help with anything. I promise that people here just want to help you. But you do have to ask. Like, no one can read your mind. You have to initiate that. But once you do, you'll have access to a plethora of resources.
activities and sports and electives and so many things. There's so many opportunities here. So make sure you take advantage of that and like try things you're familiar with and things that you enjoy, but also try to like go and do like new things, and you never know, you might discover something that you actually enjoy.
The questions is, what makes Montgomery special to me? And I think that it's a place where I experience a lot of personal growth. Well, for one thing, the staff are super supportive, the teachers and the relationships that you build with them give you a level of comfort that allows you to make mistakes, to try new things, and to grow as a person. I think that that level of comfort and the ability to take risks, the ability to try to better yourself, gives you a lot of skills that you're going to need later in life. It gives you the confidence, the ability to ask for resources. And I think that having that type of environment where you can cultivate the ability to ask for what you need, the ability to try new things, the ability to grow like that is very, very important. It makes it a very special place.
In school, my guidance counselor has really supported me. Through helping me enroll in classes, as well as planning for college, he's really aided me in my experience here at MHS. Also, my friends, that's a really big part of just the support network here in Montgomery. Making good friends is really important, and I think that I've done a good job of that. It's helped me create a positive environment here in Montgomery.
I think the best piece of advice I would give to someone going into this school is to definitely live in the moment, because the 4 years of this high school really do fly by, and I think you should just make the most of all your opportunities. And go join that team, go join that club, go run for that position, because before you know it, it's all going to be over. And I think I've definitely really done all the opportunities I've been given throughout my 4 years, and really make the most of it, and really just live for the moment.
We enjoyed Halloween.
As the MTEA Vice President of the high school, I just want to thank our high school staff for coming out. As you can see, our committees are working, our collaboration is working, and this is evidence with everyone coming out, showing the support and being behind everything that we do at the building.
Unity, positivity, hope, and belonging. Our journalism students are here tonight. They asked me what some of the best moments were in my career. There is no highlight reel that exists, but I can tell you, in our best and greatest moments, and in some of our lowest, there's not a single day that I am not extremely proud to call this my home. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone from the high school. One more part of the superintendent report, we have our Director of Equity, Data, and Accountability, Mrs. Stacy Young, here to present the results of the GPA field test, which is the Graduation Proficiency Assessment. Not grade point average, but Couldn't come up with a different, acronym.
Well, that is a very tough act to follow. But I'm going to do my best here. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Stacey Young, Director of Equity, Data, and Accountability. And I'm here tonight to share out on our Spring 2022 results of the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment, or NJGPA. The NJGPA is a state-mandated required assessment that was administered to our high school juniors, our 11th graders, last spring in March of 2022. And this is an assessment that's designed to measure the extent to which our students are graduation ready in English language arts and mathematics. The ELA component is aligned to grade 10 New Jersey Student Learning Standards, and the mathematics component is aligned to Algebra 1 and Geometry. The NJGPA last spring was a field test, meaning a test in its infancy. It was the very first year that it was administered statewide. And so essentially with a field test, the state of New Jersey is saying, here, take this brand new test, see what you learn from it, and we'll see what we learn from it too. So for that reason, the state did prohibit the assessment from being used as a prerequisite for graduation for this upcoming class of 2023. What we can use the results for, though, are as another data point used to aid us in our review of our curriculum and our instructional practices, and to help us find any potential focus areas for this upcoming administration of the assessment. The NJGPA has just two performance levels, not yet graduation ready and graduation ready. Before we take a look at the data, I just want to take a moment to remind everybody of our student confidentiality laws, which essentially say that as a school district, it is our responsibility to prevent members of the public from discerning student identity. So the NJDOE maintains 10 as its minimum N size for school and district reporting. So in other words, you might see throughout this presentation that some subgroup data is suppressed. Please know that that's intentional. Okay, we'll take a look first at English language arts. Please allow me to orient you to the screen here. On the left-hand side, those columns there represent graduation ready. And on my right-hand side, those columns there represent not yet graduation ready. Our district is in the gold, and the state of New Jersey is in the green. So as you can see here on the left-hand side, graduation ready for English language arts, our 11th graders came in at 73%. Looking at the right, our students who are not quite there yet came in at 27%. Again, this is English language arts. Taking a look then at math, again, graduation ready on my left, not yet graduation ready on the right. Our district in the gold, state of New Jersey in the green. We can see there on the left-hand side that our students came in at 90% graduation ready in mathematics. That's it for the district data, as it was only administered to one grade level. So we're going to take a look now at our demographic breakdown. And you'll notice as we move through these slides that I've transitioned us to some traditional traffic light colors to make our analysis a little bit easier. So in the red we have not yet graduation ready, and in the green we have graduation ready. We're taking a look first at subgroup gender, and this is English language arts. And we can see there our students who identify as female came in at 83% graduation ready, and our students who identify as male came in at 64% graduation ready in English language arts. Sticking with gender and looking at math, we can see here that our students who identify as female came in at 91% graduation ready, and our students who identify as male came in at 89% graduation ready, so fairly comparable there. Taking a look then at race, this is English language arts. We can see our students who identify as Hispanic or Latino came in at 38% graduation ready. Our Asian students at 90% graduation ready, and our white students at 53% graduation ready in English language arts. Sticking with subgroup race and now looking at math, we can see our students who identify as Hispanic or Latino coming in at 52%, our students who identify as Asian at 99%, and our students who identify as white at 82% graduation ready in math. Moving into subgroup program, you can see here our students with disabilities represented. and those students coming in at 14% graduation ready in English language arts, and at 39% graduation ready in math. So I think in reflecting on this data, we can certainly agree that there are some notable achievements while also recognizing that there is certainly room for growth. So let's talk about notable achievements and interventions. In terms of notable achievements, given the past few years that our students have had, and given that this particular cohort of students has not taken a state assessment since the 8th grade, if I'm doing that math correctly, our students significantly outperform the state in both ELA and mathematics. And particularly in math, our students demonstrated graduation readiness at a 90%. In terms of interventions, it's important to note that data-informed decision-making is not a new practice for us, it's an always practice. So student performance is regularly monitored, analyzed, discussed by all different members of our learning community through team meetings, department meetings, professional learning committees, etc. And in those meetings, data is used to determine the efficacy of our instructional practices. So in other words, we're using that data to figure out what standards we might be frequently missing and finding ways to adjust our curriculum and our instruction accordingly to address those. And really at the forefront of that work are our teachers and the content area supervisors who work to identify those standards, those skills, and those concepts that are not being adequately grasped. Also important to note is that in New Jersey, our district included, we use a tiered system of supports or a framework for supports and intervention that you can see outlined here. It has 3 tiers. Tier 1 is universal supports. Tier 2 is targeted small group interventions, and Tier 3 is intensive interventions. So what does that actually mean? I'm going to try to take a little of the jargon out and share with you that Tier 1 is really that natural differentiation that happens in the classroom. That's universal supports for all students, meaning that all students can receive these supports. And that looks like things like a graphic organizer or different audio or visual options, etc. If a student is not meeting with success, then we move into Tier 2, and that is targeted interventions, and that may look like small group instruction. That could be small group in the classroom, it could be small group out of the classroom, and our students who qualify for academic support would be considered Tier 2. And if a student is still not meeting with success, is still not growing, then that's when we move into Tier 3, which is that more formal referral and evaluation process. You might recall at the end of the October assessment presentation, I shared a new intervention that we have with us this year in STAR 360, and that's an assessment platform. It's ELA and math, and what's fantastic about it is that it is aligned to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards and to the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, which means that it can predict a student's success on the NJSLA. And what's fantastic about STAR 360 is that it really is a teacher's instructional tool, and it provides a snapshot of those students in that classroom at that moment, which is really valuable given that a lot of our statewide assessments are data from a few months ago. Still valuable, but it's fantastic to have that right in the moment data that teachers can use to progress monitor and adjust accordingly. And then of course, again, we have our existing ELA and math interventions in our literacy skills lab courses at the high school, in our after-school clinics, and in after the Achieve program, after-school health study hall, etc. Moving forward, the next administration of the NJGPA will take place this upcoming spring in March of 2023. That concludes my presentation. At this time, I'm happy to take questions from the board.
Board members may submit questions at this time. Board member Smith.
Thank you. First of all, I'm not sure, President Spence-Wallace, are we going to be going back and discussing anything about the high school presentation or not?
You may, because Principal Pino Beatty is still here.
Well, the first thing I'll say is that Principal Pino Beatty, I'd like her to develop some sort of passion with what she does. Because she's so understated, and you know, you can't tell where she's coming from. And I you know, as a leader, I think she could work on it. Anyway, in all seriousness, it was a very thoughtful presentation. I'm always impressed. You know, the nice thing about it was it wasn't just providing like, raw information. It was really showing real-world impacts for what our staff is doing. And so I want to get that out on the table first of all. So I do have a few questions, I guess, about the presentation you just did, which, as you said, is that there were some parallels to what you did last meeting. And the one thing I noticed was that it looked like 90% of the students were graduation ready in math, but our ELA percentage was significantly less at 73. Any comments? Do we know? I mean, obviously this is to inform you of areas we need to go, as you talked about with subject supervisors, but any thoughts on that?
Sure, I mean, I can share anecdotally in conversations with our supervisors and our director of curriculum and instruction that over the course of the pandemic, math seemed to translate a little easier to remote learning than English language arts. So I think that might be playing a part in that data that we're seeing.
Great, yeah, thank you. The other area is you again showed, just like last time, that there were racial distinctions in the demographics across the students. Do you have any sense of, are things changing? Are there interventions or activities that are happening that's trying to bridge any of that, and do we know if they're being successful? And this obviously was different because this is a trial test and all of those things, so I guess I'm kind of bridging both presentations and trying to understand what you picked up.
Sure, I mean, you're certainly correct that there's a correlation or a pattern that we're seeing in the NJSLA data in this data. It's very similar, and I think at this point, it's too soon to say whether or not some interventions are working or not. We've only really had a couple of months, but it's something that we're keeping a close eye on, and I will hope to have better answers for you when we have a little more data to work with.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's obviously an area we could improve. And I guess the final thing is this data going to be made available at the state level, at a summary level for all districts like they do for some of the other test results?
To this day, I've not received anything for other school districts in terms of the data. State level data is available, not by subgroup, just by ELA and math, but beyond that, they haven't provided anything else.
And remember, this was a field test, and
No, I
usually the
understand
state
that.
uses that to gather information to tweak it for when they implement the final version of it.
Right, I understand the field test, I just didn't know it, so maybe it's not applicable at this point because it is a field test, but okay. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. I want to echo Mr. Speck's comment about the SLT presentation. That was really great. I'm excited for my high schooler to do budget challenge next year. It's unfortunate that my now graduate did not learn because every month I get a cash app request.
I'm not making any promises.
Every month, every week. Every month. This might not be for you, Ms. Young, but looking at the academic readiness is one thing. I'm a big proponent of overall readiness of a student, and I want to take advantage of the high school staff being here. What are the things that you are doing to ensure that our students are socially, emotionally ready to move out of high school and take the path of either going to college, taking a gap year, vote? What are the paths that we encourage our students to look at to make sure that they're ready to go to college? I know anecdotally of a few students who, after a couple of months in freshman year, decided to come back because college was not for them. So what do we do so that we don't have to go, parents and students don't have to go through that step of having to send them to college only a couple of months?
Sorry, Stacy, I believe this one is for me. So this is a difficult thing, and there's a lot that I have to say about this. I've been a teacher, I've been a school counselor, I'm now a parent, thankfully, to children that are too young to ask me for money yet. And there's a lot that comes into play here. So there's a couple of things that I want to point out. So the pandemic has played a huge role in college readiness and just our own ability to navigate the real world as we're in it. So we had students that, stayed at home, then had a hybrid experience, then came back. There's certainly an impact on state testing there. The rigors of the classroom, we know that being in our classrooms is better than being at home. So there's a piece that we are always going to connect back to that. And then there are some other things. So we do a lot with collecting anecdotal data from our students during their time at Montgomery High School, and then as they leave us, they come back and they share things with us as well that we take very seriously. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. One is stress. So all stress exists. There's good stress, there's bad stress, but it's still all stress, and our body reads it the same way. So a lot of our experiences, curricularly and in terms of the makeup of our day, are designed so that way when students leave us, they have the mental preparedness to access their college education. So they're in classes, the block schedule was purposefully designed so that way it more mimics closer to a college class. There is the stress of the bottlenecking that students feel of exams as we get to the end of the semester, or even before a break. I've talked to a lot of students, they feel right before a Thanksgiving break or a winter break that all of a sudden things pile up. We're not looking to alleviate all stress, because learning to navigate that when you have all the scaffolding that's in place for a high school is part of that experience, so that way when you leave, you have the experience, you know that feeling, you've done that. It's like doing a push-up or making a foul shot. Our counselors work tirelessly with our students. So there's a lot of different components to being mentally healthy. There's the portion where we look at students as they struggle with the developmental milestones of adolescence. So we can't ignore that hormones come into play with mental health. So a lot of, when we look at a student's mental health, a lot of it is developmental and looking at where they are in terms of becoming a teenager and this time span for them. A lot of it is situational. So, life happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens when we're even trying for it to not happen. So teaching students to navigate that as it happens. And really, there's a piece to this that we have to understand as well. Up until senior year of high school, students have always had a next grade. So they've had, we give them the idea of choice. So you can choose your courses. Freshman year, you're kind of stuck with what you get. But you have this idea of choice where you're choosing your courses, you're choosing your experiences, you're choosing your extracurricular experiences, whether they be with clubs and activities or athletics, and you're learning to manage your time with that, and that comes a piece of mental health as well. But what you don't have when you leave us is that prescripted next something. So that's where sometimes we will have students, and we are not unique in this, that will go off to college and go, wait a minute, this isn't right for me. So we can encourage students, and we do. We have a lot of very honest and candid conversations. Our counselors are extremely strong. Our teachers come into play with this as well, and they have a lot of conversations with our students about choosing a school that's right for them, choosing a school that's appropriate in terms of size and academic rigor. I'll use myself as an example. I went to the College of New Jersey, a good academic school, but on the smaller side. If you would have sent me to Penn State, I promise you I would have been back within a year. It would not have been a good fit for me as far as my social emotional makeup, because I'll be honest, I would have focused on fun. Focused a little less on the classroom. I can be honest. So a lot of that comes into choice, but I actually look at it as a strength when a student realizes that they've chosen badly. So what we've done is we've created opportunities. Failure is not always bad, but you have to learn how to fail up. So our students might enter into a situation where they realize this is not the correct academic school for me, or the correct social environment, or maybe the stress is too great, or a lot of what we talk about is, are you really ready to go far from home? Is that something that you're prepared for? Something goes wrong, and who are you reaching for? So for me, I needed to know I could come home. I have 2 sisters and a brother. They were good with phone calls. So making sure that when we put our students into situations where they realize that they've chosen incorrectly, they know how to get out of that. So sometimes when our students come home, it's okay. We'll help them again. But what I need everybody to know is the door never closes. So our counselors don't graduate kids and say, that's it, I'm done with you, don't come back. Our teachers don't do it either. So a lot of times we'll have students that come back to us and say, you know what, this wasn't the right thing for me, can you help me? Can I want to make a better decision, and we navigate that together. So a little bit of a messy answer, but It's not as clean cut as I can measure somebody's reading level, measuring their mental health. That's like trying to harness the ocean.
Thank you, I appreciate that response.
Hi, I have questions for both, but I will start with you.
Sure.
Since this is a new test, will you get the opportunity to help, evaluate it? Will our students get a chance to help evaluate the test as a state, giving us that opportunity?
No.
Okay.
So sometimes they do. At this point, there have been no offers for that.
Okay, and I guess I sort of want to look at what really happens. We're just looking at, juniors, high school, graduation readiness. So you have a whole year after that. And I'm assuming, given our graduation rates are so much higher than the rate that's here, that we do improve quite a bit along that line before, so that so many more graduate. And okay. Okay. Sorry.
This is why they don't ask me to come often. So yes, you are correct. And there's a lot of different things that also, Stacy covered a great deal of things. Sometimes when our students know they're taking a field test, they take the test accordingly. And we can limit that as well. I might not be speaking from personal experience there. But, so we have that, but I want you to know that we have a lot of different pieces of measurement that we do, because test data in any form, we will take concrete data and we will take it very seriously. So our instructional services department, Ms. Young, along with Ms. Borland, they've given us some tools that we're able to employ to measure the growth of our students and look at where they stand in terms of attainment of standards, so that way we can target specific skills and specific students. So that way, we care very deeply that we are sending them off academically prepared as well as emotionally prepared. The other piece that I'd like to let you know is this year, for the first time ever, we introduced the school day PSAT. So it might not sound like a big deal, and it also might sound like a big headache, and I can tell you that living it, I'm sorry guys, I know it's a big headache. These fine educational professionals behind me don't love me for that decision. But what I can tell you is our participation rate was higher than ever. So that's another piece of data that we have that students take extremely seriously. So students have the opportunity to take it as 10th graders. They then have the opportunity to take it as 11th graders again. So that way we have a high stakes test that's more than just what they look at as, sadly, state standardized testing, where they're able to perform, and then we're able to have that measurable growth as well. So I just wanted to introduce that into the equation, even though it was a lot. We will be doing it again next year because, as we continue to navigate things and look at, doing the things that are best for our kids, this removes some barriers for kids in terms of equity, access, and ability to take the test, as well as removes the barrier for some of our athletes and our students that are involved in competitive co-curriculars where they wouldn't traditionally be able to access that assessment during a Saturday.
Ms. Pino, just to let you know, it will be a little bit easier next fall because we'll be all district.
I will celebrate that after we navigate it. Don't change things on me. I don't like change.
The other question I have for you is, first, of course, it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you. It was fantastic, and congratulations on your year tenure. I want to know also, you talked about the four-year colleges. My mother was, I guess, a junior college teacher, so I definitely have to know, what were those other, because I know all these other students are doing all kinds of things, right?
So, post-pandemic, I'll now call it, we've had a lot of things that are interesting happen. So we've had students that have utilized a gap year option in a lot of places. We are not unique in that either. I will tell you that the utilization of our community colleges is so severely overlooked, and I wish that families would take advantage of that for a myriad of reasons. Sometimes students just aren't ready to go away. I understand that sometimes our students look at that and say, well, it's like the 13th grade. I've had these conversations with them. It's not. I know professors at our community colleges. They're the same professors that teach other places, and I can tell you, a lot of times those courses are much more difficult than what you pay a lot more money for. So especially in the state of New Jersey, it's important to know that there's a reciprocity program where if you go through a community college and you attain that 2-year degree and you have a C or higher in any of your courses, don't hit the microphone, Heather. All of your courses directly transfer to the 4-year institution. That 4-year degree doesn't say the College of New Jersey -2. It says the College of New Jersey. So the other part that I really need to kind of hit home with all parents and all students in our community is we're kind of at a time where just a bachelor's degree is no longer enough. You know, it used to be you could enter into the workforce without any college degree and a high school diploma was enough. Now, a college diploma has become comparable to just having that high school degree. Our students, this next generation of young people, masters are going to be a requirement. So we have to start to consider that, and when you're thinking about, you know, financially planning for your future, you know, what I don't want for even my own children at home is I don't want them to graduate with a mortgage payment so that way they can't have a real mortgage payment. So I understand that, you know, we do put a lot into the 4-year college experience. That is not the only experience out there. Post-secondary experiences come in all shapes and sizes, and we really do have to find what's right for each individual. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that. I have no passion. We're just clear.
And a plug that, you know, I don't think people know this, but all Ivies take
that is also
transfers
true.
for junior colleges. Some of the
I'd like to say something just about this, if you don't mind. So as a graduate from a community college with my associate's degree, I went on and obviously got a bachelor's degree and 2 master's degrees, one from an Ivy League. So if ever you want to have your students talk to someone who has taken that path and has done so, I think, pretty successfully, by all means.
And that is amazingly, I mean, that's amazing, period. Let's just talk about that. But I do need to let you know that the stigma doesn't rest with our students.
No, it's the parents. And parents, if you want to ask me, I'm
So, Board Member Spina, I'd like to, you know, at this point in time, turn you over to the community for a Q&A session that will be held at a later date.
Board Member Spina, we'll host a town hall featuring you.
She's also going to wish that she didn't know. But she didn't hit the microphone, so I'm going to put it out.
So, I think my next question to you, my last question is, what's next? What do you see from this? Because to me, I'm looking at a lot of subgroups that need some help, not just one, right? And I'm looking at, you know, I don't know if it's unique for this time. I don't think so. I think we've had this as a concern for a while, at least. I know I've been talking about it for at least 3 years. So, what's our next step? Or what?
Very tangibly, Ms. Hirsch, yeah, our next steps are to drill down to the student level. I mean, looking student by student and understanding their story and where they are and how that correlates to a variety of data points and figuring out how we can move that student forward. Those are our next steps.
Thank you so much.
Any more questions, board members, at this time? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Montgomery High School, thank you. The board member recognition is going to be moved to be present. So at this time, we arrive at the part of our agenda with new business from the board or public. And bear with me as I utilize my colleague's glasses this evening, as I left mine at the office.
What number?
I'm not sure, but I'm managing. I'm managing. So the Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the board. Members of the public are allotted one opportunity to bring any new business to the board for a maximum of up to 3 minutes per speaker. All comments or questions must be directed to the board president. Before you make your comment, however, please state your name and address and write both in the notebook provided at the podium. Being mindful of privacy rights regarding students and board employees as well as parents and to avoid any potential liability on the part of the speaker, the board discourages references to specific individuals. While directing your comments or questions to the board president, please understand that the public comment portions of the meeting are not structured as a Q&A session, but rather offered as opportunities for you to share your thoughts with the board. The board president or superintendent may need to refer an issue if the issue has not been handled through the appropriate chain of command within the school district. Responses may be provided at the end of the session or follow-up may be required. So, Board Secretary Venanzi and Assistant Palumbo, we're going to open public comment at this time.
I'll go be first. I'll be first if nobody else wants to be first. I didn't follow directions. I didn't clearly print. I printed, but not clearly. I'm Francine Pfeffer. I live at 5 Mystic Drive in Skillman. Thank you, board members, for being here. I would like to say that the presentation from the high school teachers, I used to work in a high school, almost made me miss working in a school, but I do not miss that 5 a.m. alarm clock ever, 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 and I also don't miss being able to go to the bathroom whenever I have to. That's another big one that is much better about not working in a high school. But I'm so glad, since my son is right now in 7th grade, I am so glad to hear them talking about belonging and using trauma-informed care and talking about social emotional learning in schools, because I've said it before from here, students can't learn without that readiness, and it's really, really important that right now especially we focus on those things above all else, because without that, no matter how much we think they're not learning it well. And I wish that we and parents and the state of New Jersey, instead of talking about college and career ready, I really wish that we could focus parents who are against community college, who have a stigma about their children going to 2-year schools and want them all to go to 4-year schools. I wish we would talk about being life ready and not about being college and career ready, because life ready encompasses college and career ready, but it also says maybe a gap year is the right decision for you, or maybe something else is the right thing for you, not just college. And one thing you left out was vocational schools. I used to work in my second high school teaching job was a vocational school, and trades is something that a lot of people don't focus on, but I taught at a high-tech VOTEC, and one of the students who then went to college after college went and became an electrician, and he's making more money as an electrician than he was with his fancy-schmancy engineering degree. So plumbers and electricians and other tradespeople often make excellent salaries. Machinists, the state is looking for machinists. There are a lot of trades that you can do very good with, so let's focus on being life ready. And finally, before I sit down, I just want to point out to everybody sitting here, this NJGPA, it is a field test, but as we're looking at those scores, let's also remember that the State Board of Ed, in a 7-3 vote, arbitrarily raised the cut score 25 points without any data whatsoever. So the cut score was raised from 725 to 750, and or maybe it was 700 to 725, I forget which numbers, but it was arbitrarily raised 25 points by the New Jersey State Board of Education with no data. It was a field test that was really kind of developed from old tests, but it was not supposed to be given a field test. So I am a public education advocate, and I and other public education advocates work very hard to make that be a field test. Trying to do it this year, don't know if that will be successful this year, but just remember when looking at that data, that test was never given, and the graduation ready number was raised. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening, and I'm sorry, Board Member Speck, Board Member Bursch, thank you for your service on this board.
Gabriela Sayama from Delmi. So according to board's website, the board is elected representative body of the citizens of township. The board's responsibilities include, among others, to receive input from parents, students, and community members. The board has the power to operate the local schools as it seems fit in compliance with state and federal mandates. This board awards MTAA president unlimited comment period outside of public comment. This board approved reading of letter from a parent that was not even present at the meeting. And the same board rejected to hear from a parent stuck in traffic on a rainy day making way to a meeting, which was not a common occurrence for him. Last month, we watched a parent asking this board to be able to speak, and the president of this board said, "No, sir." Only after another resident asked the board to vote and temporarily suspend board's rules and letting this parent speak, that she initiated voting. 2 members out of 9 present wanted to know what this parent wanted to say. Only 2. And thank you, Mr. Carlson and Mr. Speck. The state of New Jersey gave you all power to say yes. In fact, it is one of your responsibilities to hear from the public and the parents for sure, but you voted no. This board claims they want to hear from the public and from parents, and this board seeks to shut it down. I was very disappointed that day. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joanna Filak, 4 Coldstream Court in Skillman. So I noticed that on the agenda, the board will be voting to approve travel expenses for the board president, 2 principals, and 1 MTA activist to attend a South African Democratic Teachers Convention in February. So each participant needs about $3,000 for the trip. So we know that South Africa is a country that's facing bankruptcy due to government corruption, high crime, embezzlement of public funds. The system education is really far behind the quality of education offered in the United States. So I'm trying to reconcile what is the value of our school administration to participate in this convention. I would like to understand why we're spending money on this convention, on this trip, instead of investing in our teachers, instead of investing in our repairs. We just voted to increase our taxes to fix our schools. And I'm just trying to reconcile what is the value for our school administration to go to this trip. Thank you.
So it looks as if our first public comment is closed at this time. Thank you for your questions and comments. Superintendent McLaughlin, would you please reply to those questions that you're able to do so at this time?
Sure. The question about the travel, if you look at the reimbursement requests, most of the trip for each participant is covered, not by the school district. So I just wanted to point that out. And what is the value, right? So we are one of the leading districts in the state of New Jersey in the Labor Management Collaborative. And being as such, the South African Democratic Teachers Union has come and visited us 3 times. And so now they have invited us to go. They are going to embrace and embark on the Labor Management Collaborative. And they are looking for our assistance. And so we are sending our team to South Africa, where I said they had come previously, one visit to Village Elementary School, one to the high school, and just recently on October 31st, they came to upper middle school. So coming back, we're trying to form a collaborative virtual experience with South Africa. And so that's going to be the benefit to Montgomery when they come back. And also in training and sharing our story with them for their buy-in to create the trust that is absent there. As you had spoken, their education system is in need of help, and so they are seeking our help. And then in return, we will have virtual relationship with them, see what we can learn from them and help them with their educational system.
Great, thank you, Superintendent McLaughlin. So now we'll transition to our committee and representative report, starting with MTEA President, Mr. Jim Dolan.
Good evening, board members, administrators, teachers, everyone here in person and also virtually. The high school just did a fantastic job. I'm so proud of them. There's not much more I can say that hasn't been said already, but just the turnout shows how much they are a team, how much they are a family, and how much they do work together. So wonderful job, high school, and I do love videos too, and that really did capture everything. So great job, another Scott Judah presentation. Just a couple things going on around the MTEA. We had our virtual Read Aloud series does continue. We had one last night. We have another one coming up on January 17th. It's titled Just Help, How to Build a Better World. Pretty good title. We do advertise these things through our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram. We send out some notifications through the PTAs. So if you're ever in need or want to know how to sign up, just go ahead and hit some of those channels and you'll see the sign up on there as well. The MTEA also participated in the annual Kids Giving, which was held at Orchard Hill Elementary School. We had a nice little MTEA craft for children to participate as well. And we also gave a monetary donation to the Kids Giving to help that. It's a great cause. I know it's only December, but we are already beginning as an association getting ready for our annual Music from the Heart presentation. This year will be Cinderella, so I'm sure that will be a big hit amongst our Orchard and Village School families and children. So if you're not familiar with it, our staff put on a wonderful show. 100% of the proceeds for ticket sales goes towards scholarships for our high school seniors, graduating seniors. So we will certainly share some more information about that, but save the date, it is May 6th. Our equity committee has started a new program called MTEA Assist. So what it's looking to do is help, it could be community members, and it could also be our own members of our own association who may need some extra help. We're collecting gift cards at places like ShopRite, not just during the holidays, but trying to accumulate all of these things so we can help people throughout the year who might be having trouble. As I walk around the school district, I can see food piled up all over the place. I can see gifts getting ready to be given out at Village School through the programs that each building seems to do. So that's the time that most people think of it, but we're trying to extend that beyond that as well. So we're just getting started with that and really looking forward to it. To add some more money or contributions to that, you may see some ugly sweaters around the district. So we're having an ugly sweater contest where we're asking members to either send in a photo of themselves or their pet, or both, for a suggested donation of $5. Then we will have a winner or loser, I'm not sure how that one works, of the ugly sweater. So don't judge us on maybe what we're wearing for the next few days, because you may see some ugly sweaters. But it all goes to a good cause. Lastly, I'd just like to thank our board members that are leaving us. Mr. Herring, Thank you. I know it's been a short term, but I know that you have been contributing and sharing some new ideas to the Board of Education just in the short time that you've been there. So thank you for your service. Mr. Specht and Ms. Bursch, wow. You've been here doing this for a long time. Mr. Specht loved it so much he did it a second time. Yeah, so you're still a community member, so you can still do it again. That's not a problem. But just as your most recent tenure, I'm not going to speak to your other tenure, but Ms. Bursch and Mr. Specht, we've been through a lot over the last couple of years as a board, as a whole board. We've worked on our diversity, equity, inclusion within our school district, and that continues. We have gone through a global pandemic, and we're now still working on the after effects of that, and we'll continue to do so. We worked on a full-day kindergarten initiative, which did pass. So you might be leaving us, but you're leaving a legacy behind of your work that will continue long after you have left. So I do thank you, and I appreciate working with you. Maybe not a day here or two during negotiations, but most days. No, but we do have a, with that being said, just a joke, we did have a wonderful contract. We're very happy with that as well. So I wish you all the best, and you know where we all are on Tuesday nights. So we welcome you to come back and just from a different perspective. With that being said, for all members, I wish you all happy holidays and a happy new year, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Jolin. So now our board delegate reports will begin now. Delegate reports. Board member Specht, yes?
So I have two delegate reports.
Outstanding.
The Somerset County Ed Services Commission had a meeting last, I don't know, a week or two ago. It's all blurred together. But it was just interesting to see how the Ed Services Commission has changed over the years since going back a decade or two, and how it used to be a transportation subcontractor, and now they're trying to sell their buses off, and it's just interesting to see how it's happened. But they're very committed to the programs and providing services for districts like Montgomery, for students that it's a better situation for them to be at the Ed Services Commission. The other thing was that Vice President Franco Herman and I were at the Somerset County School Boards Association meeting last week. And that was another case where it was actually held at the Botech School. We joined remotely, but they were introducing the service people that produce the meals and serve the meals for the school board members that are there, and several Montgomery students were introduced, and so it was interesting to see how they're making use of that. But the most interesting thing, I think, of that meeting was that Maren Smaglia, from North Hunterdon Voorhees, who's their communications person and public engagement, spoke and did a presentation similar to what we had seen a few years ago. But it was just interesting to hear kind of her comments about presentations and the importance of communications and having a plan. Decide, it's not just a day-to-day type of thing. You're trying to really look to see how do you want to engage the public and have a focused plan on doing that. And so I'm glad that the superintendent has set up a committee internally to be looking at those things. But there were, she had just some good comments. You don't talk just about good things. You talk about things, bad things that happen too, because those are just as important. Sometimes being consistent, handling crisis that I think you do pretty well, and making sure that you're kind of reaching the audience you're trying to get to, whether it's the staff, whether it's the community, whether it's the students. So in theory, the meeting was recorded, and I think we'll get a link to the meeting recording, and so we'll pass that on to the full board. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Specht. Any other delegate reports at this time?
Madam President, do you want me to give my shares update now, or?
Please, thank you. First VP,
So I'm just providing a short update on Mashios, our food service vendor, who has been operating in the district since the school opened in September. So with any new vendor in a new environment, they are experiencing quite a few hurdles. But I am pleased with their responsiveness to staff, parents, and students when feedback is provided to them and when they're required to act on that feedback. Mashios has recently conducted sessions at both middle schools, both elementary schools, with parents, students, and staff. This week, the high school will have their food service advisory meeting with Mashios as well with parents, students, and staff in that committee. A lot of feedback has already been received by Mashios, both positive and items that they need to improve on. Please be assured that we will always keep an eye on food service, and we ask that you continue to provide your feedback to Mashios, and so that they continue to give a good variety and healthy options for our students and staff. I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you, First Vice President Franklin Herman. Any other delegate reports? All right, hearing none, we've reached the part of our agenda where we'll hear our board committee reports, starting with ACI. Happy holidays, everyone. The ACI committee members met on Wednesday, December 7th. The meeting was attended by the MTEA president as well as other board members and a few administrative personnel. The assistant superintendent, Damian Papa, and I co-chaired that meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, introductions ensued, followed by Mr. Papa, who reviewed the committee's norms as 3 Board of Education members-elect were present. Then, the Director of Equity, Data, and Accountability, Stacy Young, delivered an overview of the Spring 22 Field New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment that she presented on earlier this evening, and thank you again, Ms. Young. Along with the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Ms. Fiona Borland, Ms. Young was encouraged to provide more detail on the types of interventions and assessments that take place during class time among students within the district. Both ladies expounded on a new reading and math assessment program the district chose called STAR 360, a Renaissance online assessment platform. STAR 360 is a suite of valid and reliable assessments aligned to the state's grade level and content area standards, and teachers are able to access student performance results, and I believe in real time. If not, then by pulling of usage and performance reports. The results help teachers work with content supervisors in identifying students who may require 1, a deeper dive with relevant interventions, or 2, those who may benefit from enrichment learning activities. The assessments are adapted, so students' responses to a question triggers the difficulty level of the next question. December marks the month whereby some students will be assessed to determine the teacher's instructional focus. So in other words, which content standards teachers will focus on with their intervention methods with the students. Next, the counseling director, Corey Gaylor, reported on the Montgomery High School Program of Studies changes set to commence during fiscal year 24 or the 2023-2024 school year. For those of you interested in the details of the course changes, please reach out to your high school child school counselor or call Ms. Gaylord at 609-646-7601. The approved program of studies, I believe, will be voted on by the board tonight and available online after the January 3rd, 2023 reorganization meeting. One of the significant changes, however, includes a dual enrollment initiative that's a partnership with Seton Hall University for junior and senior high school students. This course will be offered through English classes. As well, Tomorrow's Teachers, a National Future Educations initiative in partnership with Rider University, debuted this school year. And finally, details on the changes to the state-mandated financial literacy course for high school students was highlighted earlier by Principal Pino Beatty. And so, like as she shared earlier, 2 Montgomery High School journalism students, Nina and Emmy, invited me to interview for a class assignment. So when asked the reason, they reached out to me. Both ladies expressed that their assignment required them to identify a community member who's engaged in meaningful change. So bashfully, I stated I was very humbled. If you can imagine that. So I'm not lost on the honor of serving the Montgomery Township community as a member of the local Board of Education. The questions were thought-provoking, and I even felt compelled to subsequently send a voice note in a group text that we created afterwards as I concluded. I think I needed more detail on one of the questions that they asked. So Nina and Emmy's enthusiasm, their poise, their professionalism, and their interviewing technique was incredibly impressive, and it was conversational and pleasant and just fun. So please join me in issuing a big shout out to two of the many outstanding Montgomery High School students. I just want to thank the young ladies for thinking of me and seeing the work that I have the pleasure to implement with Phyllis and Cookie and Patrick and Marty and Maria, Christina, Shreesh, Doug, Rich, Mary, and her team for the past 2 years. We all fulfill our civic duty with an emphasis on the student family-centered approach, which leads to a gratifying overall experience. So next we will hear from Board Member Bursch with a report on the Equity Committee, and that will be followed by Second Vice President Todd with a report for the Operations, Facilities, and Finance Committee.
Thank you, and again, happy holidays to everyone. The Equity Committee met on December 1st. We discussed revisions in our charter. The committee determined to end the ARC and discuss the next steps to be taken with that. All members will be notified, and the ARC email will be forwarded to another school board. We requested various reports to review disciplines, AG courses, and gifted and talented programs. I will transfer ownership of all ARC and equity files to the district by the end of the month so that we have a smooth transition for the next term.
Thank you, Board Member Bursch. That concludes your report.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's it, thank you.
I didn't want to overstep.
There you go.
So the Operations, Facilities, and Finance Committee met on Thursday, December 1st. We started off by welcoming our incoming board members who were able to join us. First topic of discussion involved building usage throughout the district. Staffing issues, including lack of custodians able to work overtime and or weekends, has become a potential issue. Tom Benanti and Mike O'Neill are addressing this issue before it results in denial/scaling back of rentals, which could potentially lead to a loss of revenue. Second topic of discussion was the current deposit policy of collecting 25% down for rental fees for building usage. There was a discussion to raise this amount to 50% in order to capture more of the fees up front, as there are times there have been difficulties in collecting balances from groups who rent our facility. Additionally, there was discussion about giving the VA the discretion to charge a higher deposit percentage to groups based on their payment history. Both of these items will be further discussed at PCC. The VA has completed his review of the budget and lifted the temporary spending freeze. He came to the conclusion that the district is on solid financial footing as of now, but he will continue to review and report out to the committee on a monthly basis. He did stress that he will keep an eye on the district's health insurance numbers, as claims are running high currently, which could potentially impact the district's budget. That's it.
Thank you. So Board Member Speck delivered the Policy and Communications Committee report, and then Cookie Franco-Homer with our Human Resources Committee report will follow.
Thank you. The PCC committee met on December 2nd. And just like the rest of the committees, we welcome the the three member-elects that are coming to the board. I believe Mrs. Bursch was the person who actually introduced that process of allowing newly elected members to come to committee meetings to understand what the committees were like, and I think that was an excellent process, and I think they hopefully the new elected members got something out of it. We spent some time at the beginning of the meeting talking about what policy does, how it works, how legal things happen, and our legal consultant, Strauss Esme, who provides policy input. We did talk about particular policies. A couple of them were facilities related. It was actually nice because they were very cut and dry. It was basically state law regulations had changed, and so our policy was being updated to be consistent with the updates there. And so it was a nice way of kind of talking about these things without trying to get into a lot of detailed discussion necessary. So those are on agenda item 1.2, I believe, and then 1.3, we're adopting some policies that we talked about at the last meeting. We also talked some about communications, and I reflected the input at the school boards, county school boards meeting, and so the superintendent reported out on the progress that her internal committee had been made, and so we had some general discussion about that as well. So I want to thank the PCC committee members who were there, and I wish you well. Thank you.
Okay, so the Human Resources Committee met on December 6th, and majority of that meeting was held in executive session due to confidential personal matters. However, I am plugging this, which is the Montgomery Township School District Job Fair that will be held on January 12, 2023 from 6 to 8 p.m. at Orchard Hill Elementary School. The district will be hiring for all available positions, support staff, teachers, even substitutes. Any community member interested in working in the district, please come to the job fair so you can ask your questions of our very competent staff and my partner in crime, Assistant Superintendent Kelly Mathis, about any of the positions that we have open. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for those board committee reports. And as we conclude with these reports, so this Board of Education experience continues to come as a surprise to me. It was never my plan to run for any public office, local or otherwise. So I stumbled upon, as I've mentioned before, the special Monty board meeting in June of 2020. And I heard many students exercise their powerful voices, and I was inspired. I asked myself, if those young, brave persons can step up, then why not me? So while I thought I was insane, and being a board member does require a level of insanity to volunteer so much time juggling board work and with my own career and family time, knowing positive contributions in a positive way in the form of championing excellence where students and staff benefited is gratifying. So as a devoted collaborative leader, it's my hope that we all share, and it was experience that we did, becoming more responsible, more efficient, appropriately communicative, and caring in our role as Board of Education members. And I think we did a solid job this year of beginning the process of turning the ship around. So like the Three Musketeers, our board experience has reflected one for all and all for one. The authority bestowed upon us lies within the 9 of us, not any individual or group of individuals save a quorum. So I'm blessed to have called Phyllis Bursch, Rich Specht, and more recently, Douglas Herring, my colleagues. So join me in giving a huge shout out to our 2 former presidents, Phyllis Bursch and Rich Specht. We admire your relentless advocacy and absolute brilliance. And we only dream to emulate your unique candor. You both inspire me to stick with this. even during those moments when I wanted to give up, and I thank you for that. Thank you for your excellence, for your support, and how you challenged us all at every turn.
You ain't seen nothing.
We appreciate it. Thank you for your continued commitment and service to this really beautiful Montgomery community. We will miss all of you tremendously. We love you, and we wish you well in what comes next. So we have some parting gifts. So board members, please come and support me in this. So for the two former presidents, Phyllis Bursch and Richard, we have these beautiful plaques, and it reads, Montgomery Township Board of Education recognizes Richard Specht and Phyllis Bursch for dedicated service to the Montgomery Township school community. And the quote here reads, by word and deed, your presence has enriched the lives of students and served as an example for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And these were student-made, right? Weren't they?
Yeah, were
Of
they?
course, yeah, they usually are.
These are student-made.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Thank you to the
See, that student-centered approach.
Handcrafted by the MHS Technology Education Department. So thank you all.
There's more. Harry, thank you for your support.
Go to the front, go to the front.
Oh,
Turn around.
yeah, that's Thank you, everyone, for your indulgence. Thank you for your service. Woo, okay. So at this time, yes.
Mrs. Burke have anything to say?
Yeah.
So, Board
Or do
Member
you want to hold
Harry,
that?
Bursch, and Specht. Any words?
You want to start or?
Go ahead.
Okay. I have to write this because, so thank you all for your kind words. I enjoyed my time on the board. It has been a wonderful experience. I have come to admire all the workers in the district. I must acknowledge our outstanding members within the CWA, APSMG, and MTA, and our non-affiliated workers. No matter the position, we have committed, talented, and amazing people working to make our school district better for those who matter, our students. I've enjoyed working with students, parents, community leaders, and communities. Our students, your children, daily demonstrate they are intelligent and talented young people. I must thank board members, our field representative, Gwen Thornton, our attorney, Stephen Fogarty, former BA Annette Wells, administrators and staff who put up with thousands of my questions and ideas.
Millions. Millions.
They're still tabulating.
In pursuit of the goal to ensure the district is run well. I also need to thank all the outside board members, the state board members, who all have helped in supporting and having ideas to help us in this process. I apologize if I've missed anyone. I do thank you. It's not on purpose. My goal has been to improve the schools, student life, and the quality of education. My methods were multifaceted. I am not afraid to be the bad guy, to move things forward, or to spend time. Say that again?
No, we know.
No, we know it, yeah, all right. To spend time listening to understanding everyone's ideas, or look stupid or silly. The goal is what matters, and that is improving things for our children. I have grown to love board members who volunteer and work tirelessly. I want to thank those members who have worked with me throughout these 6 years, and I'm proud to call you friends. You taught me how to become a better member, advocate, and person. I knew this part was going to be part of it. I want to thank the current board for helping me this last year. My mother died. You are kind, and I've been going back and forth very slowly. So I really appreciate it. I will truly miss everyone and wish you well in the future. And as always, if needed,
Mine's easy. I was here the briefest, so my statement will be the shortest. Thank you for all you do. Because sitting there, you really don't realize how much time and effort you all put into it. I'll say it slowly. Thank you. As parents there, you don't really know what Board of Education does or how much they do. And to discover how passionate everybody here is, how hard they work, was inspiring. I'm glad we helped you the children. Thank you.
So I want to also express how honored I've been to be on the board for the last 2 years. Like Phyllis, I have many thanks. I want to thank the board, who many of them are not here. I think maybe you're the only board member that was on the board when I was appointed. So there was an open position. I stepped forward and was selected out of a number of candidates. And so I thank them. I thank the public for electing me a year ago. I thank all of my fellow board members for the dedication and support that you've given me and to the district. Of course, our administration and staff. And most of all, I would like to thank our students. As was said by Principal, the students are truly inspiring. You know, we've had some contentious issues over the last couple of years, and to hear our students come and speak at the board meeting about topics, you know, that were important to them, and how they expressed themselves, how they organized their thoughts, was truly inspiring, and it makes you realize that we must be doing something right in some ways. The last 2 years have certainly been challenging. We had COVID and the learning loss and dealing with masking. There was the aftermath of racial incidents nationally and the reflections of our former students that in town hall meetings here, that we understood that there were issues that we had. The whole controversy around the health curriculum and of course food service. So we've had a lot of challenges that we've tried to work with and handle. These had major consequences. They were disruptive. They were at times all-consuming, and they distracted the board from some of the work that boards should be doing. Hopefully, many of those situations are going to be in your past, and I hope that that will happen. That the board and the district will be able to move past them and focus really on the future and the success of all of our students. And so, to me, what does that mean? One of the things is looking at the big picture, trying not to get too distracted by day-to-day events. It's very easy to, something comes up or a member of the public comes forward, which is vitally important, but it's easy to focus on the day-to-day problems instead of looking at the strategic long-term, where do we want to be, how are we going to make our students successful in the years ahead. So focusing on the long-term goals, deciding how we can measure progress, monitoring that progress and status, I think are important. The last two meetings we've had presentations on assessment data that we had, and so those are things that are also inspiring and should give the board reason to look to the future. The STAR 360 program that was mentioned at this presentation and the last, and President Spence Wallace mentioned, it is a great step forward. It really addresses a situation. It provides teachers with information on a direct basis to help individual students, which is vitally important. But what other improvements can we make? How can we look to the future and try to do some of those things? What other innovations can the district look towards to prepare our students? I think that how we respond to issues from the public is vitally important, and whether that's rankings or how tutors are required by some students. These are topics that come up in the public, and they seem very simplistic, like, this is just, why don't you fix this? Or, why is it? And things are not black and white, and things are much more complicated in how they go about it. But the public can benefit from having that discussion and doing that research, and so I can encourage you to do that. And then finally, of course, communication is something that I've tried to advocate for. Having a positive community engagement, I think, is important. And even things like having the presentation tonight. Can you imagine if you're a parent of a high schooler, how could you not feel an impact and feel engaged by the presentation that we had tonight? How many parents were here? Fortunately, we're recording these, we're streaming these things. Hopefully that's encouraging people to come. But there are a lot of people that won't see this. And so, I've looked to, how can we get the community to really understand what's happening? And so I just close by wishing you all well. I hope, the challenges that truly are behind you. And I will be looking forward to seeing you from the other side. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, we will transition, and Board Secretary Benanzi will facilitate the approval of the minutes.
Okay, it's recommended the Board of Ed approve the minutes of the following board meetings: October 18th executive session, November 15th executive session 1, November 15th executive session 2, and November 15th business meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion.
So after reflecting on the minutes and reading through the minutes, where I actually was one of the person quoted, because I got up to the dais up there, I did reflect back on the video of the meeting, and so I'd like to add at the end of the public comment for mine, and I'll provide this in electronic form to the Board Secretary. But basically, I'm saying, finally, Mr. Speck remarked that he finds it ironic that some people speak about parent choice. In all of the publicity and materials about the Drag Queen Story Hour, it was very specific what the program was. The parents who registered for the program made an explicit choice to bring their children. It seems to Mr. Speck that choice is only applicable when parents agree with the positions of the parents' choice advocates. So I would like to make a motion to have the minutes reflect that additional wording.
Okay, there's a motion to amend the business meeting of November 15th as read by Mr. Speck. Is there a second?
Second.
The amendment? Mr. Herring? Any other discussion?
I have another discussion. I sent a letter to you about changing, I believe, 2 sentences on the equity report.
You want to move that as a second amendment?
Yes. I'll make that a second amendment. Let me go back to it.
Okay, under the equity committee,
revised the lessons from it. There was a brief discussion of the ARSC, whose charter will be ready for January. To change that to, there was a brief.
Can you read the margin?
Oh, I'm sorry. It said there was a brief discussion of the ARRSC, whose charter will be ready for January. And I needed change to, there was a brief discussion of the ARC, period. The equity charter will be ready for approval in January.
Okay, is there a second for that amendment?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, call question for approval of those minutes as amended by Mr. Speck and seconded by Mr. Herring, and motion by Ms. Bursch, seconded by Mr. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you, Board Secretary. Benanzi, next, the board acknowledges receipt of the published correspondence. And I'd like to bring your attention to correspondence board number 3. I would like Ms. Church, if she's still present in the audience, to know that the board president and or the board chair is in the process of responding to that communication. Now we arrived at the second public comment portion of our public meeting. Members of the public are allotted one opportunity to address the board regarding the action agenda only for up to a maximum of 3 minutes during this period of the meeting. All comments or questions must be directed to the board president. The board president may need to refer an issue to the superintendent if the particular issue has not been handled through the appropriate chain of command within the district before coming to the board for response. Responses may be provided at the end of this session. Second public comment is now open, specific to action agenda items.
Gabriela Zaiva Fogami. So the policy district-wide parent and family engagement. There were a few revisions, 2004, 2010, 2019. But would you be able to tell us what the revision is for this year? I looked at the old one online and I can't find what the differences are. Is there any way to provide what the changes are, or what, is it just being approved the way it was? Or are there any changes to it?
I can address that.
Board member Speck, please, thank you.
So when we had the first reading about these, I did speak about these presentations. These, very similar to the ones that we're getting tonight, were really requirements of the State Department of Education. You know, it's like, why do we have to have 4 different policy, actually 5, we have to have one for each of the buildings. And, you know, sometimes there are just administrative requirements, and so there was no substantive difference that I recall.
So there's no difference, it's just being...
I think that there was that, I would have to actually go back and we can review that. We do have more of a summary of those things. There was also a comment at a prior board meeting of providing more of a redlining of things when those are happening, and I think that that's an area that's also being reviewed. So
really impossible for us to tell what's changing, and it would be really helpful.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that is one of the reasons, though, why I do try to talk about the policies, to put context around it,
Yeah.
so that, you know, is this substantive, you know, or is this more of a pro forma type of thing? Because it is. Many of these things are coming through changes to administrative codes, changes to law that our legal consultant, Strauss Esme, then does provide. If you go to many of the school districts around the state, for example, if you look at their policies, they'll look very similar to ours. And,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
this is one of those things where it was really more of an administrative issue.
Okay, and would you be willing to, like, let us know on the next ones, like redline or something, if something changes?
I think that the idea was to have the administration look to see how they can do that as effectively as possible. Because, so I'll let the
It's a
administration
consideration
respond.
at this time.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. We appreciate that feedback.
Okay, and one more thing about the travel reimbursement request. So I know you already addressed some of it, but I still don't understand why we are spending our resources, time and personnel on what are our benefits for this South African Democratic Teachers Convention. I checked their website, and their alliance is to South African Communist Party. And many of the statements on their website are anti-American, such as the capitalist governments of USA, Canada, and West Europe need a military political mechanism to repress and intimidate the peoples. And as recent as December of this year, Central Committee strongly condemns decisions by the imperialist regime of USA to include Cuba in its list of state-sponsored terrorism. U.S. must remove Cuba from the list. And the list goes on. There's links to Russian communist newspapers and such. So I don't understand, are we going to be going next time to Russian Teachers Conference or North Korea? What is benefits to us, not to them, to us? I would like to know, please. Thank you.
Can you send us that link that you found that out to the board email address?
Send a link to the board or?
Yeah.
Good evening. I hadn't planned on speaking tonight, but in hearing about this travel reimbursement, I was just looking at the reimbursement request and in hearing the response from earlier. I also would like more clarity on the purpose of this trip and the benefit to the Montgomery School District. And I'm really unclear on who is funding this trip. It's on our reimbursement request, but I felt like the answer was that you aren't funding it through our school or taxpayer dollars. I'm also interested in knowing about the other charges, the other expenses for $1,500 each. And also, it is noted at the bottom of the page that the lodging is paid for by the South African Democratic Teachers Union. And I just have a concern that this is a gift from a foreign entity, and that is possibly a conflict. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, I go back for a second.
Sorry.
I'll
Mr. Carter, too. Wait until the second public comment for the board member.
My name's Charles Hunnam, from Oxford Circle in Skilling, New Jersey. So this takes like 5 minutes, so anybody here probably could have done the same research that says with engagement with this organization. The South African Democratic Teachers Union, SADTU, has quick links, and they prominently display the hammer and sickle, which is a communist symbol. They have links to the Communist University. They have a graduation cap with a hammer and sickle on it. You can look at it right now if you would like to. They use terms like dear comrades. That's how communist people kind of talk to each other. They talk about the Communist Party of Swaziland. They have speeches, documents, and a year planner. I believe there's a quote there from Lenin, the goal of socialism is communism. They have 3 quick links. One is to www.anc.org.za. The second one is to the South African Communist Party, sacp.org.za, where they proudly announce that they've been in existence for 100 years, from 1921 to 2021. There's several links there where they talk about workers marching towards socialism. It's a socialist movement, socialism, communism. They have further quick links to the African Communist Organization, the South African Road to Socialism. They have other links that include the Marxist Internet Archives. The third quick link they have is the www.cosatu.org.za, which stands for the Congress of South African Trade Unions since 1985. So my question is specifically to the board president, is when did you become aware of this, and why did you allow this organization into our school districts here? Thank you.
The second public comment is closed at this time. We thank you for your questions and comments. Superintendent McLaughlin, you want to begin response to the questions?
Can you speak up? I can't hear you.
Well, the question I'm prepared to answer was answered earlier, the benefits in Montgomery. Upon returning, the districts will share their experiences from the workshops and their experiences with the staff regarding the conference. And they will also create international ROLA-like groupings where the staff from Montgomery and the South African Democratic Teachers Union will be able to enter into and maintain collaborative relationships and focus on education. And so it's not a political trip. It has nothing to do with politics. Kids are kids, and it's about instruction and learning and how to, they're looking for a better way to educate their students.
Germane to the inquiries around the political affiliation and how it's connected to the public school system, I do not have that information at this time. This is going to require follow-up from the two researchers at Rutgers University, Saul Rubenstein and Charles Heschner, as well as a colleague affiliated with Cornell University. And please be advised that detailed follow-up will be provided at our January 3rd, 2023 reorganization meeting. Thank you for your inquiries. Now, board member, please, you have a statement.
Well, I wanted to say, I did go back to look at those policies and the reasoning, and also...
Board member Specs responds with regard to the community members' inquiry about the policy.
Right, exactly. And, you know, they have said they were rewritten just as Mr. Specs said. I think probably the major change was the title from, it was before parental involvement, and they changed it to parent and family engagement, which is typically what a lot of these things are. There are a few additions as well, but the majority of the text is the same with some additions. So I just wanted to say that. And I guess I do want to say that I appreciate you looking into this, because historical organizations that have been around for over hundreds of years tend to have names that are based on history rather than current behavior. I'll give you an example of the WCT. We don't use that word anymore, but it stays for history. And I did look at the links. There are 10, got it right? And 9 are purely educational that have nothing to do with any politics.
Thank you, Board Member Burge. We will become even more knowledgeable Some of us are aware of that political reference and naming, and it sustains itself over time, just out of respect of tradition and culture. However, as stated at our January 3rd, 2023 reorganization meeting, a presentation around this topic area will take place. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the action agenda items 1.1 to 4.1. Roll call, please, boards. Oh, yes.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Discussion. I believe Mr. Carlson was first.
Have we had a second?
Yes.
I'd like to break those out a little bit. 1.1C, no. Which, the funding for the South Africa trip was on here, and I'm trying to find which one that is.
Public. 3.4.
3.3. It's 3.4.
Travel is 3.4.
3.4.
What was your comment or question?
So that,
He was inquiring about what action agenda item it was.
right, and I didn't realize this. So I'm wondering, we should move to break it out, or would that cause, or table that? So,
What you can do is pull that out and vote on it separately if you'd like to do that. You can have that as a separate motion.
can we do that?
You want to do 1.3 and 3.4?
1.3, I'm voting no on. 3.4, can we pull that out?
All right, so vote separately on 3.4. All right, so on the floor right now is the action agenda except 3.4.
Yes.
You don't need a motion or anything for that?
No.
That you always do, right?
That's a common courtesy that this district has done when you're doing a consent agenda. If there's any items that the board wants to vote on separately, we allow that to be pulled out to be voted separately.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Secretary Benesi. Is there any other discussion at this time? Board members, Beck?
No, I'll wait till the discussion around item 3.4 when it's, so 3.4 is being split out and there will be discussion at that point. So
Yes.
I'm fine. Yes, I'm ready to proceed.
Okay, voting on the action agenda, everything except 3.4. Mrs. Birch?
Oh, is it my turn?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize. I vote yes.
Mr. Carlson?
I thought I just voted, I'm sorry. So 1.1C, no, and that 3.4, which is pulled out, I'm also no. The rest,
We're not
yes.
voting on that yet, Board Member Carlson.
Okay, so-
That's been pulled out.
Okay.
We're going to vote on that
So
separately.
it's just the rest right now? I'm sorry.
Okay.
1.1C, no, the rest, yes.
Got it. Ms. Franco-Herman?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Herring?
Yes.
Mr. Speck?
Yes.
Ms. Vina?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes.
Dr. Spence-Wallace?
Yes. I'd like a motion to approve action agenda item 3.4.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So a process question. Is it possible to amend the travel reimbursement agenda item to pull the specific line items that are part of that item related to the SD, the South Africa collaboration trip?
So you want to vote on those items separately?
That's what I'm proposing. I guess I'm asking, can we essentially table those particular line items, but approve the remainder of the travel reimbursement item.
All right, so what you want to do is you want to amend 3.4.
Yes.
To exclude the items listed for the South African trip.
Yes. I would like to, so is that a possibility?
Yes.
Okay. And so then I'd like to have discussion around the impact of that and or the positive, negative. The president has said that there will be a conversation at the January meeting, and so you will be able to have a further discussion on it. As far as my particular feeling about collaboration, I think that the high school presentation this evening demonstrated why collaboration is valuable and the benefits that we have. And I think that just like any professional development, we have other conferences that staff members are going to that are on the agenda tonight. Is to improve their ability to do their job and to so I think that just from a professional development by the board and to further use collaboration, I think, it's in concept, I think it's a positive item. But I do have some concerns, and I hesitate to approve the item as the discussion is going on. I don't know if there are other alternatives that the administration has about that they will approve it and it can be rescinded or whatever other circumstances might come up. But I'd like to have other board members comment about the pluses and minuses.
I guess first I'd like to clarify, point of information.
Point of order. So you've made a motion to amend 3.4. We need a second before we have discussion.
Thank you.
Motion to amend is to pull South African trips off.
Can
Now
I
you
get
can
Okay, I think I already
Can I get a point on that? Can we, like I said, I want to further this, if we are pulling them apart, can we separate them and have us vote on each separate?
Yeah, so what you're doing is by pulling out the South African trip, so you're creating a 3.4A, and then there'll be a 3.4B to vote on the South African trip.
Thank you. I'm a little flabbergasted. I was the only one that discussed this in executive session. All right? You all sat there quiet, and I even asked you all about it, and you all supported this wholeheartedly. So, I mean, I'm pretty confused because if you had something and we had the time to discuss it, you fit it in there. I mean, I want people with character who actually stand up at the get-go, right, and do this, and don't run because you now have pressure. Also, I want to say that if this was an issue before, it should have been. I mean, it was an issue to me about money, right, and because it was changing tradition, right, but what we learned, right, is that one, we're not paying for all of it. Two, that the majority of it is coming from other people, right? And three, that this is not great value for us in terms of not only creating relationships, right? And it's not just for academic, but we academic ultimately, right? As well as professional, like between teachers and teachers. I guess I want to say that I did go to the collaborative thing that happened. Was it the last day of October? No, it wasn't the last day of October. It was
Halloween.
Halloween, right? That
When
happened.
they were in district.
Right, when they were at the October 31st. Right, October 31st. And I can tell you nothing about communism was discussed. These people only cared about education, trying to improve their education system, and trying to make their education system more like ours. They admired us immensely. They wanted to make things better for their students. And I guess, especially because I hate to say this, this goes way back. I hate to say this. I mean, I'm in law school. I'm working with international people, and they were trying to convince me to come as a lawyer to South Africa because they desperately needed people to change the situation that they had at that time. Right. And it's obvious that they have still been working crazily for them. I don't know everything about this organization, but they came as a teachers union. They have a historical background of names that I don't think have to do with the craziness that is being discussed, that has nothing to do with the quality of the thing. Everything else on their website is about education. And I hate it. And I absolutely hate it when we grab this alarmist crap, and I'm going to say it that way, right, that has come from a group of people that really want to say that everything is being done wrong, right? And I'm sorry, inclusion, accepting other people, learning about other people is important. And if you can't get that way and you stay in your closed minds, you're stuck. And you can shake your head, I'm sorry.
Grew up in a communist
But
area.
I'm
Point of order.
Point of order. I'm
Point of order, Board Member
All right.
Bursch.
I'm
Please do not
insulted.
engage with the
All right.
community.
I will
Thank
not.
you.
I will not. I am insulted that we spend too much time on these issues when we could be talking about actual academics, actual intellectual stimulation of students. And I would love to go back to that. So that's what I have to say. I don't know anymore, because you remember where I came from this with a question. Nobody else asked it. And I understand now is the time, so let's go for it.
You seem you were satisfied with the response at this time. Board Secretary Bonanza is going to conduct a roll call for 3.4A.
Just a point of order. The item on the floor right now is to vote on 3.4, except the items that are the South African trip. So your
Yes.
discussion should focus on everything except
The
the
South African trip.
I apologize.
Okay.
Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
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 All right. Right. Ms. Bursch.
Yes.
Mr. Carlson.
3.4, except the South African.
We're not talking about that.
Ms. Franco-Herman.
Yes.
Ms. Harris. Mr. Herring.
Yes.
Mr. Speck.
Yes.
Ms. Spina.
Yes.
Mr. Todd.
Yes.
Dr. Spence-Wallace.
Yes.
Okay.
So moved. 3.4B.
So we need a motion for approval of 3.4B. Is that correct, Board Secretary?
Yes, which includes the
Which
items
includes
listed for
the
the
items
South.
under, the items listed under the South African trip.
So moved.
Could comment under this?
There's a
After
second.
we have the second, once it's on the floor.
Ask for discussion.
Now you have.
Right.
I respect what Board Member Bursch said and what Rich said. I didn't hear you talk about the communist connection before. You did mention the fact that we weren't paying for everybody, and that we were going to pay for travel, but not necessarily people's living expenses while they're there. And I think this adds another dimension to the safety that I hadn't considered at the time. If there is, are we responsible for the safety of the people that we're not paying for to go down there? Are we responsible for people down there when we're not paying for them? And then since, I guess the other thing is that since the public is paying for whatever portion of this, we wanted to bring this conversation.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is this
It's
a-
valid. Thank you.
I'm assuming this is being done by the Labor Collaborative Organization that is based in Rutgers?
Yes.
And the other 4 schools? Yes.
Yes.
And where have you gone in the past?
The Metuchen School District and the Delran Township School District, as well as the Montgomery Township School District. 3 public school districts in New Jersey are participating in this initiative and sending multiple staff, administrators, and teachers alike, and union presidents and others to participate in this learning and mentoring and coaching opportunity. Board Member Herring and then First VP Franco-Herman. Oh, I'm sorry. Board Member Harris, please.
I just wanted to say, I appreciate everyone's feedback. And just, I guess, in a simplistic way. You know, we all know student safety, student success, that's our priority. We want our students to be not endanger anyone. Number two, as Phyllis said, you know, we're always learning, right? And we want to educate our schools. We want to help educate others. I think that, you know, you said, why didn't we speak up earlier? We appreciate the public. We appreciate the parents. You know, when they have comments, we're listening. This is a good example of us listening. And as Zelda said, President, we are going to ask questions. You know, we appreciate your concerns. We'll speak to, you know, Sal and Rutgers, and we'll get more information. So we're definitely listening. We want everyone, you know, we want to do what's best for our district. So I just think that this is just, you know, this raised some questions, and maybe we have more questions we didn't have an hour ago. So we're learning, and we appreciate everyone's feedback. And, you know, so thank you.
Thank you, Board Member. So, Board Member Herring.
I just had an easy question because I didn't have some of the background. How long has this program been going on, like sponsored by Rutgers?
So Superintendent McLaughlin can speak to that. And also, Mr. Jim Dolan, would you please approach the podium at this time? Because Mr. Jim Dolan has been involved in this project since its development 8 or 9 years ago. But he and Superintendent McLaughlin will be able to provide the details of that.
Yeah, we entered into this 9 years ago. We're one of the first districts that did it. Del ran into touching many others, working collaboratively in conjunction with Rutgers University and with the people mentioned, Dr. Saul Rubenstein. Part of what we've done early on as we were learning about the collaborative model was going out to the ABC School District in California. They've been doing it much longer than we have. At the time that we went out there, they've been doing it for 20 years. They started from a point of crisis, and they learned the collaborative model from there to build themselves up from that point. That's where we were first introduced from some of the leaders from South Africa, because they flew all the way to California to participate in that as well. And we've had numerous visits here to Montgomery. And we just know that sharing best practices, and that's what we're doing here tonight through the high school SLT, we can learn and also share our best practices at the same time. Any other questions about the beginning collaboration?
Yeah. So is this teachers that are going? I guess I didn't know that much detail. This is not students that's going. This is teachers.
There are no students going. So we have administrators. We have myself, who the district is not paying for. We also have another teacher, and the district's not paying for her either.
Can you tell us about any communist connection that you've had to deal with?
Absolutely none. We've had great interactions when they've come to visit us, and Phyllis, to your point, it's all been about education. They have things a lot more difficult than we do here. And they can see that regardless of economics, test scores can go up. Regardless, holding all other things constant, test scores go up, achievement goes up. That's why they believe in collaboration. That's why we believe in collaboration. So even though they may have a lot less financial resources, a lot more issues over there that we don't have here, they are committed to this and have been looking for best practices for many years because that will better their school district, their actual school system.
No, I was just going to say, the collaborative model that we are using is why you are on that podium every Tuesday meeting, because we want our staff representatives through the union share with us the activities that they're doing in their school about our staff. So that's part of the collaborative model. The other thing that I wanted to say, I think maybe we should provide clarity on the expenses for this trip, because again, as we had discussed in executive session, not all of that will be paid by the district. So it does seem very unclear if you're looking at it that, as a community member had said, it's 3,000 per person. That is not true. So maybe we have clarity on what is being shouldered by us. I have participated in one meeting with the South African delegation here. I think it was April of this year. And one of the conversations we've had, they were asking us about how our students fared during COVID. And they were sharing their experiences as teachers and their students who had to walk miles and miles just to look for Wi-Fi, just to have access to their school lessons, their school classes. Those were the types of discussions we had. We were exchanging ideas, giving them, thoughts of what they can do if they don't have Wi-Fi, and just things like that. It's about education, nothing else.
I think the Labor Collaborative Initiative is an organizational practice of how staffing within any type of institution, how they collaborate, how they identify steps and models in implementing brand new initiatives, valuing and respecting all of the stakeholder groups within the institution, as well as providing guidance, resources, and tools that has been researched over decades. And the research is conclusive in that organizations where the gap is bridged and hands and thoughts and ideas are exchanged between management and the labor unions lead to higher productivity, higher morale and efficiency standards, more willingness to adhere to standard operating procedures, knowing what they are, as well as in public school districts acutely, building the capacity of the staffing, from custodial staff to teachers in the classroom to superintendents to boards of education, and higher student achievement. The gains and the positive outcomes affiliated with the principles of the collaborative initiative are undoubtedly proven, and various organizations all over the world participate in this transformative leadership style because, if you recall, traditionally, especially organizations and companies in the United States, pre-American Revolution adhered to those, rigid Frederick Taylor style of leadership with a chain of command where people felt worthless and devalued. So these, research efforts and practices over the years have shown how beneficial and these work practices are. And as a result, and probably more importantly, the opportunity, when we hear questions about benefit, these are the opportunities where the staffing at the districts participating in this conference in South Africa will build their capacity, their professional capacity, and to provide that mentorship and coaching, internationally is pretty profound. We have the humility of a country on the continent of Africa that is reaching out their hand and asking for help. And we acknowledge our commitment and service to mankind, no matter where you are. If you're in the domestic United States or outside, we have a responsibility and a civic duty to that. and it is shared among all of the public school districts across this country that participate in this initiative.
I will also say that a best practice is presenting and sharing what we do. I'm sure board members, current board members have approved dozens or hundreds of travel requests, many of which are people attending a conference and presenting at a conference, presenting their best practices, what happened here in Montgomery. None of those were ever questioned. So we have to realize that sharing best practice is sharing best practice, and the partnerships and information and knowledge gain and insight gain from that is very helpful.
So I was wondering, in terms of sharing, I see we have a lot to share with them. What did they share with us? What are we bringing back?
To Ms. McLaughlin's point as well, we're building a relationship. We're understanding where they're at. We're learning how to solve problems with them. We're learning how to bring that problem-solving skills back to us. Because we may be seeing problems that they're seeing. We're learning how to help them solve, and it's going to help us, even though we may have different problems here. That's an asset. We're building a relationship with an international school system, which can foster all kinds of educational benefits for our students and partnerships that way. That's just to mention a few.
Actually, I want to apologize. I grew up in the United States in an academic environment and didn't have the pressure or the fear of the Cold War. So I don't know. I mean, my background does not have a fear of the war. It actually has an interest of just learning different ideas. And I don't know, for other people, that word may have, other fears. And I want to acknowledge that. So I don't want to offend people who've had, bad experiences with communism or anything like that. Because I don't understand it or know it. So I want to respect that. But I still strongly am not concerned about this organization.
The focus is about teaching and learning and building capacity and sharing best practices.
I understand. I just recognized that as I went so quickly,
Sure.
I did not want to disrespect people
Thank
and
you,
own personal
Board
experiences.
That's understood and duly noted. Board Member Carlson?
I think one of the current concerns a lot of people have is the infiltration of socialism into U.S. education systems. And you've heard of this, right?
No, I'm not aware of any integration of socialism or communism. This conference is around teaching and learning and organizational best practices so that children learn and grow appropriately.
So this concern of a small group of people would be that the connection between the teachers union here and a union there, which is connected to communism, or they say socialism becomes communism, would be a...
I'm not sure that your statement is evidence and or fact-based. So I'll need to reject that at this time.
Fair enough.
Although it'll be reflected in our minutes.
I would move that we table this until we research that.
Research socialism?
No, that we table this until we find out whether or not what I just said was fact-based.
Madam Chair, point of order, there is a motion on the floor.
So you're permitted to put that motion to the...
Please put a motion on the floor to table the motion. There requires a second in order to have a discussion about table.
Second, to have that discussion. So, as I said in my earlier comment, and partly in reaction to Mrs. Bursch, her comment and the discussion earlier, first of all, I want to reiterate the fact that I believe collaboration is important. I also agree with Mr. Dolan's comment that if you're leading something that you believe in, being a part of it in various circumstances, presenting, being able to come back to our district and report back experiences, I think there's value in that. So I don't question collaboration at all. I also want to, there's been discussion about teachers and socialism and things like that, and it also gets back to some of the concerns that have been raised about the MTEA and why does Mr. Dolan get 5 minutes or as much time as he wants, pretty much. It's because we value the relationship we have with the employees that this board employs. That, you know, we value, we want to have discussion, we want to hear what's happening, and that this is a good way for the board to do it. So I reject any of the questions that have come up or, you know, implications about the Teachers Association or something. This is not a political thing. It really reflects back to, we did have a discussion, as was mentioned, about the expenses that are showing on the spreadsheet may not be the actual expenses that would come out of the district. There's confusion around that. There was an issue that was raised about the organization itself, which, you know, I appreciate the comments of those people that have worked with the South African delegation in the past, and so I value your input. I think that this actual process has been interesting, because I think that having discussion at the board table is actually a positive thing. You know, I think that there are times, and particularly again, what the public sees, where it almost seems like there's a rote process. I think that this is actually a good thing to have in public at this point. So it did seem that the president had mentioned that there would be follow-up at the January meeting. So again, I'd like to hear comments, if I could, about what would be the impact of tabling, which is what I believe is on the floor at this point, of tabling 3.4B, I believe. And so I would like to have more input into that. Yeah, I don't know if the administration or...
Will tabling this prevent our administration or the preparation process in order to make travel arrangements? Will tabling that prevent us to go on this journey? Will it prevent us from going on this journey with 2 other local districts to a country on a continent that it would be an eye-opening experience for everyone to have that collaboration, and also that we've been doing positive practice with for almost a decade? Would tabling that mean that we would be putting that
It would almost
jeopardy?
eliminate, yeah, we would place the initiative in jeopardy, because board approval is first required, and then submission to the county executive superintendent for approval, and that takes anywhere from 10 to 14 days, as well as all of the preparation. The Montgomery Township team will be presenting, so
we
it's
would potentially be
collaboration around
throwing
that.
out a relationship of almost a decade of a collaborative group, which we've been doing practice with through Rutgers University and other collaborative school districts,
And
because
Cornell
of a
as well,
question.
Cornell University.
Okay, because of a question that came up tonight for the first time ever, when no one has cared or really gone to those presentations. I don't know who here went to the presentation by the South African delegates in October, but a little bit of historical perspective on why this is a good and positive thing for us to do is probably best before we just shut it all down. So I don't think that we should be tabling it. My vote is no.
I certainly agree that collaboration is good, and that we can benefit from this, and that they can benefit from this. I bring it up out of concern for, well, first of all, I didn't know about this until it was brought up here. Right. Well,
I'm sorry.
It doesn't say all the details in there, these ones here. And so I guess it really comes down to safety, and which I brought up initially. Is there any safety concern Are we doing this any differently than we've done it, say, last year? I think you're saying this is the third year
No,
we've done it.
to my understanding, no. And when our children travel internationally, which I think we already voted last month,
Yeah.
I think it was the November board agenda where we voted and approved the motion carried around a field trip to Canada.
They didn't go to South Africa. That's Canada's
So
different.
we've had
Only
multiple,
just.
excuse me, we've had multiple field trips over the years where our children have traveled internationally to Europe and other countries as well.
Aren't we voting on Germany tonight? That's what I read. We're doing the German exchange students.
Yes.
As well as.
Is that on this agenda too?
Yes.
It is. Oh, we voted on that already,
Oh,
3.4A. So
Sorry.
children are going to Germany.
So we just voted for it to go to Germany.
So are you concerned about their safety? I hope you're as concerned about their safety as you are ours. That would be appreciated.
So what I'm asking then is.
You said you had a question around safety.
Yes. Right.
Safety of the people who visit. I mean, I'm trying to figure out the safety of the travelers.
Is it about the continent of Africa? What's the difference between the safety concerns there and the one in
My turn to
Germany?
finish my question, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear
All right.
that, please.
Thank you. Okay, so as I said before, given that we are not paying for everybody's, and we're also not paying for anybody's living expenses while they're there, how will we be responsible for the safety if there are issues with those people who didn't fly over there, and how will we ensure the safety of people that were?
In the same manner that we ensure the safety of all children that travel, whether it's domestic or international, and we're responsible for all travel, whether it's around the corner or a million miles away.
Is there any other discussion? So the motion on the table is, okay, the motion on the table is to table 3.4B. So if I'm right, then we want to do a vote on
I think we
that.
should enter into voting. Is there any final discussion points at this time? Board
Okay,
Secretary.
motion to table 3.4B. Ms. Birch?
No.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Ms. Franco Herman?
No.
Ms. Harris?
No.
Mr. Herring? Mr. Speck?
No.
Ms. Spina?
No.
Mr. Todd?
No.
Dr. Spence Wallace?
Abstention.
Okay, now the motion on the floor is the approval of 3.4B.
Any further discussion?
Discussion. I would just like, President Spence Wallace, you had indicated that you felt that there was some follow-up that would be appropriate and would be presented at the January meeting.
Yes, I think it would be appropriate, absolutely, because I think it would be beneficial for the community to have a fuller understanding.
Yes, because
Of
the
this
confusion about the
initiative.
spreadsheet and about
Sure.
everything else. So I would just like to request that the board president and the administration review that expeditiously and just to, just make sure that,
It'll be done.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's all. Thank you.
Can I just say I agree with Rich?
Mm-hmm.
It is refreshing to actually have discussion for. We haven't had it.
We haven't had it in a while, so.
And I hope you get to do more meetings so you can have more.
Yeah.
Madam President, including, just to add to Mr. Speck, if we can make sure that the expenses clarification be also part of your update in January 3rd.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. It was confusing to me as well, and we talked about that in executive session to parse out the responsibility of the funding for this travel.
And if I understand correctly, that was necessary because it needed to go to the county superintendent.
The
that's why
county
it was laid
superintendent
out.
requested all expenses, those paid
To be
for
part-
by,
Thank you.
right, the visiting country as well as the board. Right, they just came. Thank you.
Ready?
Ready.
Ms. Bursch?
Roll call,
This
please.
is in favor of 3.4?
Yes.
Yes.
B.
3.4B.
4B. 3.4B, yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Abstention.
Ms. Franco Herman?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Herring?
Yes.
Mr. Speck?
Yes.
Ms. Spina?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes.
Dr. Spence-Wallace?
Abstention.
Motion carries.
Right. I'm exhausted.
Madam President, can I say one more thing?
Everyone.
Sorry.
Yes.
I just want to encourage our board members, to participate in collaboration meetings. When they come to the district, which has happened over the past couple of years, when collaboration meetings come to the high school BMS, our board members are invited. I've attended.
We're always invited.
We're always invited. So I encourage our board members to attend so that they learn about what we're doing.
Right.
Because it's all about education.
Right, and I would also say that there have been conferences, some that were virtual and everything else with other districts, and I would encourage, because I think that since collaboration is such a important program that we have here, that the more the board is aware of what's happening, and as has been said in the past, it's actually a little unusual that one of the things about the Labor Management Collaborative is that it's not a rigid, this is how you have to do it structure in all cases, and the different districts have evolved and come at it from different ways. And one of the unique things about Montgomery is that the board is actually included as part of collaboration and the DLTs and things. And so I think it is valuable for the board members to be a part of it, and I encourage the board members to avail themselves of those opportunities. Thank you.
And I think there are usually 3 or 4 a year of different activities that happen, because they review each year and they have best practices, meetings, they have all of those. So there are many opportunities.
Right, and I believe there are more than 3 or 4 a year, Phyllis. And I think there's an annual conference within New Jersey as well, and the national level labor unions participate.
Yeah, I mean, there was a $3 million grant, as I recall, by
The
the
NEA
to fund.
granted
because
to NJEA specifically to support the labor management collaborative.
You get lots of money in grants. Okay.
And I just wanted to also reiterate what Rich said, and I think it's worth saying again, that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Montgomery is one of the only districts right now that has the full board involved, right, in collaboration, and that's.
We are pioneering this effort, yes, and Rutgers and Cornell is relying on us to provide data for their research, right, on this, and to continue to build on the best practice and the model, effective models that work, and the roles of the various stakeholders within that model.
We are the only board that does IBB negotiation with the union.
Right. The interest-based bargaining is a product of the collaborative initiative. So thank you everyone for your voracious commentary this evening.
We had to go out in style.
It is at this time where we've reached the conclusion of our Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 open public meeting session. We're appreciative to all those who participated. We wish you and your families a beautiful and joyous holiday season. Should there be no further objections, I'd like a motion to adjourn this day's open public meeting session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Any abstentions? Good night, everybody, and thank you for your feedback.
Happy holidays. Thank you all.